This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Hello, everybody. Real quick, I want to do a mic check over here on Rumble. Oh, hang on. Okay, everybody over here on Rumble and X Live, let me know if you guys can hear me because I was having some issues with my microphone over the weekend, so I want to do a mic check. So if you guys can hear me over here on Rumble and X Live, please give me a thumbs up or just say you can hear me, whatever works. And everybody here, X Spaces Live, hello, hello, hello. Everybody, I want to welcome you to the Revival of America. I am Jenny. I'm the owner and the host of the Revival of America. Today we have Rubberduck in the house. I've called it the series because Rubberduck is a wealth of information and it's a series of great information. So it seemed to suit him pretty well and what we were trying to go for here. So he is in the house, everybody. So if you here on X Spaces want to request a mic, raise your hand. I will unmute your mic and you can ask Rubberduck your question at some point in this podcast. If you are over on Rumble and X Live, just write your questions in the comment box below and I will read those to Rubberduck as well. Also, to everybody, be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting into your mind. I'm seeing it on a daily. It's very unfortunate to see some of these people go at one another, but also it's kind of exhilarating seeing the ones that we know that have been out there kind of nefarious and showing their true colors. So it's happening full circle, everybody. So just really, I say it for a reason. Be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you put into your mind, because it's harsh out there. And if you can't handle it, I can understand where you can get a lot of confusion, a lot of disappointment. You're fed up, whatever it is. All the emotions are real. I get it, but at the end of the day, stay out of the noise. Stay focused on the positive because there's more positive than there is negative that's going on in the world, everybody. And we are coming into better days. But we knew we had to go through some hard times, and we're going to continue as we come to the end of this. Also, if you come into this podcast late and you want to listen to the replay or share it with somebody, you can follow the podcast host or my social medias. I post them everywhere. You'll find I'm not too hard to find. We are being listened to in 150 countries, everybody, so that's huge. I just recently recounted, and it's 150. So we're moving, everybody. We're making a lot of great positive noise. The podcast hosts are iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Podbean, Riverside, Amazon Music. Social medias are Jenny Dreed Facebook, at Jenny underscore Dreed right here on X, at J Dreed Rumble, at J Dreed True Social, at J Dreed Instagram, the Revival of America on Telegram, and the Revival of America over on YouTube. So please go check, again, like I said, if you come in late to the podcast or just want to listen to the replay, that's where you can find it. Also, I'm centralizing my emails, everybody. If you have a message for me, please just send it to my email because I'm getting a ton of DMs and it's more work than it needs to be for me to go to this DM to that DM. Just go to my email at the revival of America at yahoo.com. Send me your question or whatever it is, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can regarding if you're trying to get in touch with John Baxter and his staff down there in Florida to go maybe use his facilities for free. Again, the revival of America at yahoo.com. Regarding Field McConnell, everybody, I don't have any new news for Fields. I do reach out to him on a weekly. I don't know what's going on. I've tried several times to reach out to him as well as his home nurse. But I'm just assuming no news is good news. You always know that. But I'm just assuming he's focusing on his health, which I support that 1,000%. So once I hear something, I will definitely let you know. But if you are inquiring, because many of you have been inquiring about his books, reach out to me at therevivalofamerica at yahoo.com, because I do have those available for the public. Also, if you have a story or a journey to tell, you want to come on the show and have your voice heard, to send your submissions to TROA submissions at yahoo.com. I will vet through the story, and if I believe it's legitimate, I'll reach out to you back via email, get your voice and your story scheduled on the show. Because remember, your voice, your story is going to help shape this new world we're coming into. And yes, I do vet those stories, everybody, because guess what? We have the trolls, we have the scammers over there that just want to make up a fake bullshit story to get on a platform, and it's sad. So, but if it, if I do believe it's a real story, and I'm not quick to get back to you, just bear with me, guys. I'm a one man show. I got a day gig, and I'm doing the best I can. But my day gig is priority to the podcast. So, and the podcast is only going to happen today because I have graduations and promotions within the family that are happening this week. We know that it's the end of the school year. So, all you parents out there that have kiddos graduating, promoting, whatever it is, congratulations. These are all big accomplishments for not only your child, but for your kiddo, for you as the parent as well. So, with that, everybody, I'm not going to take any more time. Rubberduck is up here on stage. Going to send him the co host. And we're going to just figure out what the hell we're going to talk about, because there is so much going on. And yeah, I'm anxious to see what Rubber Duck has to say. Where did he go? Rubber Duck, where'd you go? What's up, Dr. James? I'm going to send you a mic. Yeah, Rubber Duck, where'd you go? If you guys don't mind, while we wait for Rubber Duck to come back, you guys, if you guys don't mind reposting the space, get some more people in here, because a lot of people love to hear Rubber Duck and what he has to say. And I renamed him a couple weeks ago, and everybody, everybody's still laughing about it, and they're emailing me and giving me that name as well. So it was a good time, everybody. But what's up, Rubber Duck?
Hey, honey, I didn't get that Oh, I do have it now. Thank you. How you
It,
doing?
I'm great. I see you as a co-host. Yeah, you're there. You's there. I'm doing good. Like a lot of craziness going on, but a lot of great stuff going on. More great than crazy for sure. So
100%.
so so everybody, so just so you know, these aren't scripted. These are off the cuff. I'll talk to Rubber Duck or whatever, and I don't. I think it's more. I think it's more real when it's just off the cuff. So there's no script here. Rubber Duck goes with what he's gonna go with. I have a couple notes here that I have that I'm gonna, because I tend to like ask my guests maybe one, two, maybe three questions, whatever I have, and then I open it up to you, the audience, because that's what my podcast is about. Everybody is not only my guest voice, but you as the audience. I like to integrate the audience's voice into our conversation, just so you guys know that your voice matters too. You're real people like we are, and a lot of people want to know that we're real people like you are. So again, that's why I do it. And then we're just not scripted. So we're just kind of gonna go with the flow. And I don't know where you want to start, Rubber Duck. I know I have a couple questions for you, but if you want,
Sure, let's start off with that. I mean,
okay.
it's
So
not much. I mean, other than the Trump alien thing that I can hear, like the last thing people seem to be talking about. So that'll be an easy one. But
Well,
yeah,
it's funny you say that, because I have that here on my list, and
oh boy.
well, what I want to say to that, it's
Well,
more
tell
of
me
a
what they're thinking, I guess, or
well,
ask the question. However.
it's more of a comment, and then you can add to it. So, what I want to say to the audience, because I've had some comments, because I did post it, because Donald Trump did post it. And again, I always say, if you're confused on who to follow Donald Trump, because he's telling us without directly telling us. So, he posts things for a reason, everybody. And I think what people need to get beyond that. Okay, what I'm getting is it's AI. It's AI. Yeah, duh. Hello, we know it's AI, but get beyond that it's AI. But why Donald Trump, our president, is posting that on his True Social? There's always a reason behind what he does. He gives it to us for us to go do our research. And I think that's, he's giving us the nuggets. Now we need to go run with it and figure out,
And
right? And
instead
again,
of wondering like what's going to happen, I mean, when I see something that I don't expect, I mean, that rarely happens. You don't want to go through these times. How can I say this? If you don't want to be, you shouldn't be surprised by anything. And when I say anything, I mean anything. We are living in the times of National Enquirer headlines, like all that shit for older folks that you used to see, your parents used to see when you were check it out at the supermarket or whatever. I mean, these are those days for real. I mean, we can't prove any of them are true. We could deny them, and that's why at this point it's best just not to take a side, not to focus on trying to prove or disprove anything that you're hearing. There is only, one plan that I'm aware of, that our military, that, where we do have a military civilian alliance, and, that's been proven over the last 10 years, but we haven't written the script to that, you know what I mean? And we were only given a little wink into it. So, but we're going through what we're going through, for a reason. Everything is carefully planned. The chaos is coordinated. You know what I mean? And we're going through like an emotional, spiritual separating of the wheat from the chaff. And only the strong-willed and strong-minded, will survive mentally and emotionally. That's what Q meant, I believe, when they always said, 4% to 6% won't make it to the other side. Won't make it. And I think that's, to me, that's mentally and emotionally. What have they done over the years? They've literally emptied out. Obama did it too. Emptied out our insane asylums and places like that, mainly for, I don't want to say for nefarious reasons, although yes, but let's face it, there was a lot of stuff going on in a lot of those facilities that were nefarious anyway. But that doesn't change the fact that most of the humanity that would be in those places, occupying those places in our jails, you know what I mean, lawfully speaking, are not people that are like us. Normal people don't behave that way, and unless they're threatened or, put into a corner by the system, you know what I mean? And that happens a lot, whether you're targeted or not. But I'm talking about some of the heinous crimes that, that we know have been committed, and many times in our name. And that's the only thing I'm interested in. The rest of it, I could give a shit. I have
Well,
to.
too,
I have to add comment. I'm sorry, honey. I have to add commentary to it because it's stuff that's happening. So that's really all that I give. But I try not to get wrapped up in like the sides of it, like the alien thing, as an example. Expect it. Expect it. Well, what do you mean expect it? Well, if you've been wondering, are we alone? Well, assume that we're not. And then if your next question is, okay, well, what are they? Well, they're among us, I believe. I believe they look like us. Okay, so how do we separate them? By behavior, and if we're able to catch them and give them a DNA test, maybe we'll find they're not really human. Maybe they're the aliens. That to
and
me seems a lot more plausible than, some of the alien stuff. So that's why when Trump comes out with something like what he put out, like him walking with an an alien ripped to shreds, in shackles, that tells me it doesn't matter what the fuck it is. He's got it under control. That
I
tell
laughed at it. I laughed at it because it's like so in our faces, and it's like to Rubberduck's point. Because I was just going to say this. Like, what are they really? The Nephilim. What are they? Because we know in the Bible it talks about demons, right? So they're not these green people with big black eyes and crazy heads. They are the demons. If you go back and you read your Bible, it'll talk about that. So. Just I think do a little bit more digging in the sense of really what are they like Rubber Duck was just saying. Do they walk amongst us? I do believe they do. Do they look like us? Yes, but they're demonic. So, and we're seeing a lot of that with a lot of these Hollywood stars, these politicians, these CEOs, you name it. They're We're seeing a lot of that, these rituals and what they do behind the scenes, under the ground, all that kind of stuff. So those are very huge characteristics of what we could be potentially calling an alien, but really they're demons.
I mean, and regarding Donald Trump, I mean, Trump, whatever we think we know, it doesn't matter. What's important is the relationship that we have with our president, with the POTUS. You know what I mean? And as Anons, we took an oath. So we serve at the pleasure of the president, just like anyone else that took an oath. We dedicated our lives to it, put everything on the line too. Some of the things I've reported on and said in the past, I'm surprised I'm still alive, which further leads me to believe that they're not really there, or I'd have been sued or dead by now. Many of us would. So, but again, whatever is true, whatever is fact, Trump knows. And that goes for biblical stuff too, right? If there's books that are missing, he knows. If somebody going back how many generations back to the beginning of, recorded history, If somebody made up some fake shit and inserted it into our religion, you know what I mean, as a form of control, well, one of two things are going to happen. Either he's going to make a decision to make that all public, or he's going to pick the path that will be best for humanity. And if that's putting a religion out there, you know, that's docile and kind, you know, without all of the attachments, something like Christianity, you know, that that can't be cornered by the Talmud. You know what I mean? And it can't be cornered by, you know, a radical wing like in Islam, especially if the Vatican gets cut out of it. You know, if you cut Catholicism and Protestant, all the fucking isms, and just say, all right, is there a God? Okay. Is there Jesus Christ? Is that something we can get behind? Is that something we can believe in? And if we don't believe in it, you know what I mean? That's okay too, because we live in a free, open society. You know what I mean? What I think that we have to look against is people that openly worship Satan because they're no longer afraid anymore. And over the last 10 years, you know, they've been flushed out from beneath the ground. That's why so many of them are up here. That's why, you know, that's been blended into this immigration problem. Lots of different types of humanity have been shuffled around the globe, not the globe, whatever the fuck we live on or in, right? So over the last 10 years. And that's been a big reason why the disclosure had to be that way. You know what I mean? If everyone saw what we saw live, you know, when they were rescuing people, you know, in different parts of the country, particularly during the COVID in Central Park, you know, and you saw some of that, you know, and you know that they're they're not human, or maybe they're human, but they're just deformed. It doesn't matter. They're victims. You know, we all know that these crazy, psychotic, you know, paperclip Nazi motherfuckers that came over here, they didn't just drop their ideology. And we know that it wasn't something benign like the word Nazism, you know, or communism, because that all leads to Satanism, you know, Baal worship or Moloch worship, all that shit. And we got to talk about that hard, difficult stuff and really learn about it, because unless we do, nobody's going to understand what happened to the children and why. They'll just look for somebody to blame. 800,000 people a year, 800,000 children a year go missing. All right, who do we blame for that? Forget who we blame for it, because that could always be made up. And plus, you would still have to prove it. So what I believe is the real lesson to be learned for these times is that not only was this how they ran the world, but it's how the world actually worked. And what we were given, this world that we live in, this, you know, real world, normal world that, you know, that we lived in, or at least up until 10 years ago or whatever. They kind of fucked with the timelines a little bit, because, you know, as people in power start disappearing, and institutions that used to have power, you know, start disappearing as far as their power. The buildings may be there, but the power is stripped, you know, and that creates a void, which I believe we're kind of living through, like the great nothing, the gray area, where, you know, we know to expect good things, but we haven't seen all the bad things. So when, and so I don't do that, because I still work on the why, because we all know when it happened. We all know who did it. We all know what they did, you know. And to me, it's no surprise why there's no Epstein list. You know what I mean? All these people. And it's no surprise that they're sliding it, and they're sliding it into another narrative, which is the alien narrative. So that means that there's a little bit of blending there. So somehow, some way, those two narratives are going to tie off. It's no surprise that the 2020 election, that Trump keeps, you know, free Tina Peters and all this stuff, that's blending into this narrative. You know what I mean? So you got Epstein narrative, you got child trafficking narrative, which includes adrenochrome, child harvesting, all the occultic horse shit. And you got the 2020 election, because they had to do it, because, you know, if the goal was to maintain the cover for the way the world really worked, you know what I mean, then the best they could do, you know, when the good guys took control of the signal, was stop it immediately, and immediately put a show together that would take about the same amount of time as, you know, a simple TV run of your favorite TV show, you know, reality TV show, you know. And
Well, you know,
again, I said it time and time again, that's part of the reason why I believe he was put out there for The Apprentice. You know, it was our initiation to Trump, not the other way around. You know, Masonic as it might be, Freemasonry, you know, with the words and stuff, you know. And again, I also believe, you know, the Freemasons, which our founders were, you know, there were good ones, and I'm sure there were evil ones. You know, I don't believe Satan worship was introduced into into Freemasonry, and until a couple of years after our country was formed, when the Bavarian branch, of the Freemasonry, which at that point in time was like the Illuminati version of Muslims of Islam during today's world. Just the insane crazy part of it, and that's where all of the ritualization and all of the initiation, all of the old world sacrifice. The more you give, the more you get. But still the goal being the same. Maintain the simulation. In other words, maintain the fake worlds. And that's why we go, when we see these buildings that we look at, and we say there's no way fucking man built these things. Either it was like a laser or some fucking, and they're not aliens. I don't believe they're aliens in the traditional form that we've been. I believe they're alien to us. They're foreign to us, no different than an illegal alien from across the border, right? And so
Amen.
some of that, I believe, is kind of mixed into this as well. So
So
let me not ramble on. Just see.
you're good. Well, you're talking about you're talking about the election and how all these narratives are going to come into it, and you're 100% correct. We're sitting here watching a lot of these states, and they're redirecting their maps, and people are losing their seats, right? So we are coming into an election season. I do believe everybody, the redistricting of different states. Pennsylvania. We've got Stacey Abrams out there coming out and admitting basically that what is it? Democrats might lose up to 191 state legislative seats. That's huge, everybody. So these maps that they're redistricting, and when it comes to these elections, I think people are going to be pretty surprised in a good way what we could potentially see come November. What are your thoughts, Rubber Duck? And then we'll go into Poland, and then everybody, we're going to take some questions. So start raising your hands if you have questions. I will unmute your mic over here on X Live and Rumble. Write your questions in the comment box. I will read those to Rubber Duck at some excuse me, at some point in this podcast. Go ahead, Rubber Duck.
I think the political stuff will have to air itself out. We got the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Massies. That's a whole political bubble that needs to fall apart. The whole Erica Charlie Kirk thing. That's like a mini narrative. Like that whole thing needs to come apart. They have to expose these influencer circles, and frankly, that's all they were. And honestly, I didn't like Charlie Kirk when, I didn't care for him, because he was one of those influencers, and he was, the Jack Posobiec type. And, and I did a lot of research on that whole group, like about 7 or 8 years ago, before they got really, really popular. And they're all into the same shit too. And if you look hard enough, you'll see them all. They're always together, always in groups, throwing up the sixes, showing the one eye.
They're placement holders.
Exactly. I mean, we say that, but nobody knows what that means. Plants and stuff. They're people they're part of the show. Either the good side or the bad side, whatever it is. I never cared for them because, again, they all don't worship the same God that I do. And we're going to get to a point where you're not going to want to surround yourself with anybody unless they worship the same God you do, because it's like the Matrix. Either they're going to be a Smith, right, or they're going to be a good person. And that's going to be the game. Because Q always said, they won't be able to walk down the street. And yeah, we'll be able to see the ones on TV that won't be able to walk down the street, but we don't know any of those people on TV because they're not in any of our real life. You know what I mean?
Right.
None of the people that would be on an Epstein list, we would never know if they're alive or dead anyway, because we don't know them. So there's
Exactly.
that too. But as far as the election, who knows? Anybody's guess is as good as mine. The last thing that'll happen, though, is Trump's going to come on TV and say, hey, guys, don't vote. We got a big surprise coming. But I don't think anything like that. I think they'll just keep moving forward with the campaigning and all this stuff. But I think what that'll do is that'll keep those folks that would otherwise rail against that narrative from getting upset. Because
And I think,
it's easy to keep that side. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
oh no, I was just going to say, and those people out there telling you not to go vote, run as fast as you can. I know people may not think of it because of what we've been seeing, but at the end of the day, if you don't vote, you don't really have any right to really even say anything or complain, right? But definitely go out and vote, everybody. You need to go vote. However this pans out, if we're gonna see a typical voting like we normally do, or however it goes, just make sure you get out there and vote. And those people out there telling you not to vote, just I would run from that conversation as quick as you can. Real quickly, okay. This will be my last question for Rubberduck, and then we'll go into Tina Q. I see your hands up. Did you see Rubberduck that Poland basically put their middle finger up to the EU, and their president vetoed the Digital Service Act? Did you see that?
I did not know.
Okay, so I'll send it to you. Maybe you can do some research on it. So basically, Poland's basically saying "f you" to the EU, and going on the side of Trump. So that's good news, everybody. I believe Poland is a part of the alliance as well. All right, go ahead, Tina Q.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, Jen. Hi, Rubber Duck. Hi, Dr. James. Rubber Duck, I have a question for you. Did you see Trump's two Space Force posts yet?
Yes, I did.
Okay, what do you think of the second one? Like Jenny said, Trump
Did you see
posted
the
his
post
own.
in my feed, Tina, or no? That I posted about it, or no?
I don't know.
Okay, don't
I
worry.
was
Then I did.
okay. So with the EBS and the misspelling of Space Force, do you think it's going to come soon after he put that out there?
In some form, yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, yeah, he does things for a purpose.
In fact,
And it,
I would be in a position. Oh, who the fuck knows when? But I would say that I mean, I'm a renter, but if I own my house now, I would bet it. It's the only
right,
way, how else do you bridge these narratives? Where do you even start? I mean, and that's even if you take into account we've been in a disclosure off for 10 years. So that really means we haven't
right,
we haven't really started yet. I mean, I think they've stirred the pot. They've admitted there's an Epstein issue. They've admitted there's a 2020 fuckery.
right,
They've admit we all know, but it's like nobody's getting arrested. There's very few indictments. There's still two sides to almost everything. There's still way too many shills, not enough anons putting out the OG anon
right,
message, so, and that we need a lot more of that. You can't talk to people about a plan that you don't know anything about. People don't need to be like well versed in the Q drops. I'm not. You put a gun to my head and start running off Q drop numbers and shit like that, you'll have to shoot me in the head. But I'm just saying there's not a soul alive that can't spend 1 to 2 hours a day, just thumbing through that and looking at all of the hundreds of thousands of hours of work that dedicated patriots put in there, because everything you need to know is there. And it's not like a big pile of mishmash shit. It's very, everything is it's been, carefully curated. So my goal, my hope is once people start understanding the reason why, the sick and perverted, we all know it's sick and perverted, but people don't understand that it's not a choice that they make. Like they don't go through life and say, hey, I'm going to start acting like this. I think, I got a thing for kids. So I'm going to start doing all that, raping them, killing them, and, doing occult stuff. I mean, it's a very sick, dark world. And I don't believe they're there anymore under earth, wherever the fuck they used to,
right,
operate their realm. And, whoever was not with us anymore, they're gone. Whoever was rescued, they've been
right,
brought up and put into that prefabricated immigration narrative for sheer safety, I would wager, because we know who was on those white ships during the COVID.
right.
And we
Well,
know where they went when they left,
I
and
also
we,
wanted to ask you
that
your
kind of stuff.
thoughts on, I saw Jenny posted it. I don't know if you posted it, but I saw it yesterday that the Mets game, to me, that's soft disclosure. And that made me excited that we're almost there, seeing that video at the Mets game.
Yeah, I guess I'm underprepared. I'm sorry, Jenny. These last two posts that Tina spoke about, I should have them
You're
up
fine.
in the
See,
thing.
that's what I'm saying. It's not scripted. It's all good.
So yes,
Well,
I
did you
love
so
it.
see it?
yesterday was the third game of the Subway Series, and which is the Yankees versus the Mets, and they were at the Citi Field Stadium or whatever where the Mets play, and Tom Hanks was there in the first row, and he the Mets his name is Mr. Met, and that's the Mets. What the fuck? The mascot, the New York
So
Mets mascot is called Mr.
yeah,
Met, and
it had
it's
the face on it.
yes, and it's
Yep.
the Met. Mr. Met is a big, huge white baseball head with a Mets hat on it, and so this one showed up today, yesterday, and took a picture with Tom Hanks and had made like a little skit with him, but on the side of his head, looks like it was cut out of a big movie poster, was the Wilson red like murder glove, what we took to be during the lockdowns as the universal symbol for adrenochrome. We saw it with Jay-Z, we saw Ellen DeGeneres, all the stars with that. It looks like a child's bloody handprint that's been smashed against the wall, and it was made famous in the movie Castaway with Hanks because he named his ball Wilson, and it was, it had his bloody handprint on it, and he kind of made a face out of it. Pretty fucking sick, because that's kind of what they do to the children. You know what I mean? They have
I
to
thought
do a lot
I
of that
thought that
stuff.
was referencing Rubberduck. I thought that was referencing to the face when they talk about the Pizzagate. What Hillary did to that girl. So I thought that was yeah, referencing that too.
And
Okay,
and
yikes.
Oprah was
Well,
there
they have to
too.
do they have to do the ritual in order to extract the adrenochrome. They don't. You can't just go in
Yep.
and grab it. I mean, they have, just like they have kosher factories and kosher farms. They have people that, they have children all lined up. One of the levels beneath, Jeffrey Epstein's temple on the island. There were 4 levels there. And they had torture rooms. They had like legit torture rooms, dungeon rooms. And there's, one of the photographs on the closed circuit monitoring system that Rachel Chandler put a picture of up on her Instagram, allegedly, featured, some of those rooms, where they're actually, processed, and there's a fucking one of their priests in there, and they bless all of the shit so that whatever extraction comes out, it's like part of their shit, and then they put them in their little vials and bottles, and they're distributed like crack, cocaine, but probably by the same people. And maybe people aren't told it's adrenochrome. Maybe they're told like it's something, like in the movie Leaving Las Vegas, not Leaving Las Vegas, to Loathing, Leaving and Loathing, Fear and
Fear and
Loathing
loathing.
in Las
Yes.
Vegas. So something like that. That's what I always envisioned it to be too. And that's how they caught the people, I believe, during the lockdowns, by manufacturing the synthetic adrenochrome, the powder form that they produced from 2017 through 2019 out of a lab in Wuhan that was just a few miles away from where the alleged, COVID was released from, not made from. The COVID that they tried to kill us was made in Ukraine and sent to China for the specific reason to have, the double mission coming from there, because the whole other operation was to break down and find out, who at the top was distributing and consuming adrenochrome. And it kind of had to be quick. So by passing out tainted adrenochrome, what quicker way, with the help of Palantir, because they can find specific heartbeat frequencies, right? And I believe that's how they did their whole roll up operation, greatest sting operation of all time.
Yep. All right. So, Dr. James, I see your hands up. Real quickly, Julianne, did you have a question for Rubber Duck? I saw that you came up here. I unmuted your mic. So, do you have a question for Rubber Duck?
Oh,
Julianne.
yeah, hi. Yeah, I was just, you were talking earlier about something. It was, and I can't really remember what it was. Yeah, so not right now, I don't. Sorry.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
caught
Okay.
me off guard.
If you think
Yeah,
of it,
you
just
come
raise
on
your
up
hand.
if you
I'll
want
circle
to,
back
honey.
around to you.
All right, thanks.
Go ahead, Dr. James.
Oh, darn. I was hoping because she would continue on so I could remember what I was going to
Oh,
ask. No,
shit.
just joking. I'm joking. No, this is cool. Yeah, a bunch of great topics. I wanted to get back to where you started. One of the first things you said was like, you were talking about the alien things Trump sent out, and you were like, people look at it and send a messages like, hey, that's AI. So like anybody that sends that message AI, that's just AI. Look, that's AI. That's not real. So those are surface dwellers, surface level thinkers. Those are the people we talk about that don't have internal monologue, the 75%, which ties us back into the aliens and the humans. We're probably the aliens if we're the thinkers and they're the humans, or the other way around, whichever one you want to label it. Functionally, we're different than these people. Okay, if you see anybody out there gets one of these posts and they just start ad hominem on something, right? They're idiots, right? They don't have the ability to think. So that's a fundamental difference. You see this in your lives all the time. People that their ability to process information is so fundamentally different. And people assume that everyone thinks the way they do, right? But it's like almost nobody does. And as you start really analyzing what people are saying, I mean, yeah, there's humorous things out there where you logically break down what the way people answer these things, and you can see if they really have the capacity to think. So when you say like, um, these people, they were really like, why would they send out, why would Trump send out these images with the aliens, right? These AI things. So that's the next level, right? Um, the people that don't have the internal monologue that are posting is AI don't have the ability to even ask themselves that question, if that makes it any more crystal clear, right? They don't even know that it's like, well, why would he do that? They see it and that's their world, right? And that's it. And that's all it is. So, like, I don't know, when thinkers look at that thing, it's different, right? Because he did post it for a reason. The aliens are a little taller than we are, right? Um, they're cut, which means they have physical environment in their lives. They're not just mental beings that communicate telepathically, though they could. We don't know, but we do know they have to work out. And at least as well as we do, from the fact that their chests aren't bigger, you know that they naturally live in a higher oxygen environment. And they have developed that way over time. Okay, so there's all kinds of things you can tell because he wouldn't put any detail into his AI images that wasn't conveying a message to us, right? So I think he's saying, yeah, perhaps they're real. I think he's saying they're st- they're stronger fundamentally. They're functioning at a higher level than we are, but we have the ability to capture them. And look what's happened in this world. The flippin' morons and the communists captured the flippin' world from all the thinkers and the right good people. Didn't that happen? It's a parallel to what we're doing right now. So, in the AI image, the humans have captured the alien, right, and have the alien under control to the point that the president is perfectly comfortable walking right next to that alien who could reach out and get him at any time, which also shows us the alien can't telepathically affect our minds. So there's all kinds of information he sends out in an AI video other than, oh, look, that's cute. Look at these people walking, and the alien's got like chains on him, and that's cool, right? So I don't know. I mean, I think he's probably telling us other stuff too. One, I think he's definitely going towards we're going to see disclosure, um, and he's trying to give us a preview. Like when they do the movies and they give you the trailer up front, right? So we're getting a trailer or something here, and it may not look exactly like that, but it's kind of metaphorical. He's shown two basically different types of aliens. One's a lot like us, a little taller, and one quite a bit, half again taller than we are, that wasn't quite as cut as the first one. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think he's telling us a lot of things in this. I think it's hip. I'm probably going to look at it a little bit more and see what kind of details can be picked up from other subtle little things. And who knows, maybe there's stego buried in there or something too. But and then the other thing you talked about, um, is it just me or like you don't, you did your digging, RD, into the movements, right? Like the Jack Posobiec and the stuff with Charlie Kirk and all this. And um, do you see like that it's like exactly the same model as like a large charismatic church, right? Is it essentially the same thing? Because like I I don't pay attention to those things really. Like I watch them, and I see what they're about, and then I watch the whole society and everybody get all up on either side of it, right? Stepping back, it just seems like the charismatic church. And I was wondering, you were tying into earlier religion and the use of it, possibly Scofield Bible stuff, and how different religions. You talked about how a religion that would not be subjected to the Talmud. When you look at it, or the Islamists, and you look at it, the Talmud and the Quran are both written about the same time period, 600s, right? Is essentially where it goes back to. And fundamentally, if you look at them, they're telling each of their peoples pretty much the same thing, right? This is you. You're the That's you have to take the world. It has to be only you. You can lie. You can do all these things. They say the same things. They're practically the same book. People won't ever talk about that, but it is what it is. They those books both had a fundamental author and a force driving the development of those books and the pushing out of those books to those cultures, and they've been very effective. So I don't know. How do you see these charismatic movements as affecting like Christianity going forward? How does the alien stuff play into that? Um, like, do you see all these as vectors in one, like different attack vectors in the same battle, and how are you tying them all together?
I think you could put them all into one narrative. You had, I think, because all of okay, New World Order, like the people that are saying, I mean, I don't know how many there are, but the people that are still talking about, oh, the New World Order, oh, Trump must be a part of it. Da, 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 da. Okay, so let's track that. Okay, so what were the plans of the New World Order, right? They wanted one religion that would dominate the world, one religion that would not dominate, meaning the most popular. I mean, dominate, meaning the most powerful. Okay, and we've been under that. We just mentioned all the books. We've been living under Talmud control. You know what I mean? They give us the Bibles, they give us the laws and stuff like that they write, but our world, which is the one we don't know about, that we're just starting to find out about, is run by that book, by the values that they teach in that book, the Jewry, the usury, the all of it, all of the most negative, heinous things, that can be learned about, those traditions and religion, whatever the fuck they want to call it, right? So that's why, in my opinion, why Israel is last, because Israel is the great question, and I think that Israel has also served as like a big bucket for everyone to just dump everything that has ever happened bad into the bucket, and the bucket is protected by Mossad, so nobody can get in there, right? That type of deal. So there's either one or two things that have to happen. If Mossad are the great deceivers, the true magicians, right? Then either they were, recruited, forced, paperclip style, which I don't know that I'd be happy with, but either that or they're gone and we have people or AI that learned what they learned and we didn't need them, because we could separate their ideology and their non-human behavior. You know what I mean? How easy must it be? How fun it must have been when the tides were turned and the programmers started becoming the victims by, AI programmers, that broke their brains, made them work for us. I'm sure there's been a lot of that too, especially some of the controlled politicians and actors. So, because I think everything that was done to us was flipped and done to them. Every mock, every holiday they fucked us over with. I mean, whether we know it or not, if you pay attention to it, you could see it, you could feel it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we've been made right or made whole, but you could feel the undertone, the undercurrent, and the fact that the Epstein list, the 2020 list, the whole 2020 situation, the whole COVID situation, that was 9/11, JFK, Jekyll Island. They're all Israel with the borders over there in Palestine. It's like that was all like if you got rid of the one tribe of people, that was probably less than a million, right? Of whatever they were, people, half humans, inbreds, whatever you want to call them. If we'd have gotten rid of them years ago, wouldn't have these problems. JFK would have put in it would have been silverback dollars and we'd have no problems. We'd have no rituals. We'd have nothing, right? But the Satanists got in and ran. That's why the only one, the one promise, one of the promises, I should say, not a prediction, the one promise that the Q team made to us in one of the first five drops was that the wizards and warlocks would not allow another Satan worshiper to run our government, to run our country again, ever, ever. And we all took that to heart because I don't think many people would have bought onto it if there was even a risk of that. And as I understand it, that was also one of the promises that were made to Trump, is that all that shit would be cleaned out and Trump would run the public operation part of it. And that's the reason why that, because now think about it. So if all of their apparatus, the spyware, all of the deception, machines, which is what the TV, the internet, all the behind the scenes magic, we have our own wizards and warlocks. You know what I mean? That cannot be defeated. You know what I mean? And that's Space Force and our special forces, which are two branches of government formed under the Trump administration for just these times, right? While Space Force was watching over everything, our special forces took over everything that Mossad had captured, all of these deception devices and trickery and all that stuff. And they made a big deal out of it and exposed them. So that could have only happened one of a few ways, because again, we would all be dead, starting with me and the Anons that were here originally.
And don't
Because
forget,
if they
Rubberduck.
had control of Palantir before we did, then they always knew where we were. So of course we had to have been protected, just like those that are, currently serving out there now. Go ahead. Sorry, Jen. Over to you.
No, 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 you're good. I'm just right there, right behind you, and that's why when our great our President Trump says we caught them all, we have it all. That's a thing, everybody. I do believe, like I think it was Dr. James or Rubberduck, maybe it was you. Yeah, they're using all their stuff nefarious that they had that they're going to use on us and have been using on us. They're turning it against them. So I believe that the Donald Trump and his team, our President Donald Trump and his team, have been they caught them all. They've been using this for a while, and like Rubber Duck always says, this is how they have caught them.
It's like
So
two
with the
Jedis. It's
time.
like two Jedis that are in a battle, and one guy, makes a move on the other Jedi, and he swipes his lightsaber from his hand, and he goes and he gets the lightsaber. So now he has all the power that Jedi had. If that's a good way to explain it. I don't know if there's any Star Wars fans, but that essentially is what was happened. It's like what happens in video games. You kill the enemy, you go grab their pack, you go grab their shit, you grab their energy, you grab their life force, like in these video games these war games and stuff like that. And that's what most the Q operation was made for, not particularly for folks in my generation, maybe the youngest of it, but really the kids that were, and that's why the majority of the movement is young, a lot of firebrands out there, but at the same time, it still is, it's not like it's hard to speak about, because all you have to do is spend time with it. And, there are people that go out there and, they're able to look through the headlines and, they're able to read the stories associated with the headlines and, they're able to somewhat themselves figure out what's going on. The Q operation, when they talked about future proof past, it's kind of a hard concept because the first thing people go to, well, how did they predict the future? And no, 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 no. Like we just got done talking about, like what they used to do to us, right? Remember what they used to do to us? Remember they used to make Simpsons episodes of like future events that would happen? That was all bullshit. They were just saying, hey, we're going to kill Kobe and we're going to make a cartoon about it. That's it. They didn't. How fucking hard is it to get Kobe in a fucking helicopter one day if he's got handlers,
They
and if it's
literally
his
took
and
their business plan and put a cartoon around it before they launched the
yeah,
op.
yeah. So that whole thing, you know what I mean? And if you ever wanted to know who are the perpetrators behind that, look at who the writers and producers are of The Simpsons, and those are the people in the club.
Well,
Because that's their gig. So the point that we're making is all of that is now being perpetrated back against them because when Q says future proves past, they're not talking about we're going to be doing this in the future. They're telling you we've done this now, but you're going to find out about it from the TV at some point, and that will confirm everything we're telling you from now.
and I'll tell
That's
you.
what that means.
I'll tell you, you talk about The Simpsons. You want to talk about another one that does the same thing? I've been saying a lot lately because I'm in this series, The Blacklist. They flat out, I'm just like blown away. It makes so much more sense now. But they talk about everything that we're going through and have gone through. It's wild, everybody. So I highly recommend if you haven't watched it, or if you've watched it, it'll make more sense to you now. But yeah, check it out because it's got like Rubber Duck said last week. What did you say? Every one of these, a lot of these shows do like 10 seasons or whatever it is. Didn't you say something to that effect last week?
Think about your TV show, like how long,
Well,
like
this one's
MASH,
10
like MASH,
seasons.
MASH went on for like 10 years, 12 years, Seinfeld, Friends, like they all have the good ones that last about anywhere from an 8 to 12 year arc, like a season run. And they do that for a reason because, if you do it right, you can set up and change a whole generation if you start a new, very popular TV series in the middle of a generation. So, like, if you start something in 1985, you'll be able to influence culture, up through the middle 90s. And that's why these TV shows go. Movies are the same way. Think of all the biggest movies. Like, they never came out in 1980 or 2000. Like, they always came out in the middle, so that they can influence and impact, like the end of one generation, into the next, like from the boomers, the end of the boomers into the beginning of the generation X, that type of deal. And then on and on and on.
Go ahead, Adam. Your hand's up, and Julianne, she left. I'm sorry if you're still here, or if you come back in. Or Julianne, did you drop, or do you want to ask a Rubber Duck your question? If so, raise your hand. I will unmute your mic. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for the mic. I just wanted to ask, everybody to like and repost the space. We got about 150 people in here, 28 or 25 reposts. Come on, guys. Go ahead and like and repost the space. Don't be selfish. This is some great information here. Jenny bringing it to the table with Rubber Duck. And yeah. Great info. Just make sure you like and repost the space, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And yes, everybody, and for those over there on Rumble Live and then X Live, because we are on X Spaces and we are streaming it through X Live. If you guys have a question for Rubber Duck, write it in the comment area and I will read that to him as well. Go ahead, Jersey. And then Dr. James, I think you had your hand up. Go ahead, Jersey.
Hello, guys. Jenny and
Hello.
Rubberduck and Dr. James. I saw something about the red folders. There's a very famous red folder that President Trump held up in his hands. A lot of people thought that in that folder is like the PEDS Act, but then I saw another one that was labeled adrenochrome. So I didn't know. Like, what do you think's in those red folders?
I think they were ceremonial, to be honest. I think it just represented, whatever, the way the story goes, the red folders were each red folder for each head of state, each person that was guilty of, seditious conspiracy, treason, genocide, blah, 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 on down the line. A red folder was created and was hand delivered by, those in charge, whether it was Trump, whether it was Mohammed bin Salman. I know that early on, Q told us that he worked very closely with Trump, and so did other leaders. Xi Jinping Penn was also seen during the lockdowns, or maybe it was just 2 years ago. His what you would call his director of staff or head of staff, whatever, literally give a red folder to, like, at that time, X's number two in command, right in the middle of their Congress or whatever, and had the guy removed. Stuff like that. We saw Kim Jong-un back then doing the same thing with his people. We know that many red folders were handed out in 2017 when Trump first got in Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia was completely cleaned out. That was where most of the that was the bloody wonderland. That's where, because it's all legal over there and a lot of it's practiced over there with regards to what they do to the children. And they had massive, underground plants. Listen, they're talking a lot about these data centers. And I believe that a lot of these data centers are going to be coincidentally close to former military bases, or you're going to see, like, miraculously built underground caverns, that all of a sudden are just going to show up, and they're going to say, "Yeah, we just made this for for an underground data center." I think that that's the story that they're going to use, and they'll probably tap Elon for that, and they say, "Oh, when you didn't." When you weren't looking, we went ahead and hired Elon's Boring Company to make, all these data centers. Because remember, Saudi Arabia was going to have one of those big cities made into a crevices. And now they're not. Now they're saying that they're going to turn it into a data center. That was a big deal. So I think there's something else going on with these data centers. Although, again, I'm sure that there's AI and we need all the stuff and but I also think AI was brought here, for a reason. Probably labeled something else, like time travel. I think that there's something that has to do with time travel that maybe they told us it was time travel, or maybe we were trained that time travel is this, but I really think that it was maybe just AI all along, behind the curtain, that they had this really, that they probably will never roll out to us, but like down to like a date and a second in time, AI that can predict any time in the future, and certainly give you anything that's happened in the past as long as it's recorded. I mean, if you know that, you might as well be a time traveler because you could speak on it. I could be wrong, but that's something that I've been floating around.
Thank you, Rubberduck. All right, go ahead, Dr. James.
Oh,
Come
hey,
on, you
yeah,
guys.
I've
I know
got
you have
barking
questions and
dogs
stuff.
now, but yeah, that's I agree with you there about the time thing. We must have somebody down the driveway. One subtle nuance to future proofs past, right? And people think about that a lot too, and the time travel things is pretty cool with that as well. But like, okay, so the event doesn't necessarily have to have happened when the drop was dropped, right? On the boards. Um, the event and future proofs past could also be something that when it is announced in the future and proven or shown, it is something that will have happened in the past prior to that. And, it not like just like, boom, hey, this happened, here we go, right? It will have been someone in the past, but it may not have happened yet. So I suspect that some of the things that were stated in there happened. And so many of the things that are used to like defy, well, this never happened, this never happened, this never happened. Maybe they have by now, we don't know. Maybe they're going to happen in the future and people won't know about it for a while. But regardless, future will prove past. And the other unfortunate possible nuance of it is the like we all think in our lifetimes typically in terms of future proofs past. It may, I think we'll get to know of a lot of the big stuff, but I think for everything to come out for all of humanity in a pace that like people's heads wouldn't explode, right? Because we've been warned just how bad some of this stuff is and how many people would simply fall apart. It's possible that it could take generations for the future to prove some of this stuff out, right? We just don't know. I mean, hopefully in an ideal world and everything will come to an ideal world and boom, we'll know all this stuff when it's all done. And a lot of us like will see what's announced in the major things over the next few months, right? And a couple of years and be like, we'll be able to extrapolate on where this is going to go and maybe even extrapolate on a time frame when that will happen. So yeah, and then the mathematics behind um, you know, um, Palantir would easily be able to do that, better than we can. And so, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, RD. They can. It's more like it's not like time travel. It's like defying time itself, right? Is what the real secret is, and it's that way in travel, and it's that way in thought. And I think we can manifest this stuff in our minds. I think that's one of the things they keep it through our diets and environment. They keep suppressed in us, right? And if we can break free of that stuff, I think we can do it. So I don't know. This is just a wonderful space and phenomenal topic and tie-in here, and it's adding stability and rationality to like a topic that surface level folks are going to be like, aliens, why, right? And it's
It
like,
gives depth.
it's just really good. Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, RD, for having this thing.
Thank you, Dr. James. Here's a comment regarding the red folders over here on Rumble from 17 Raccoons. It says the red folders were a visual metaphor. Filmmakers use them all the time, like in The Sixth Sense. When you saw red, it meant the character was dead. What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, and they did the same thing in the Godfather movies. Whenever you saw an orange or a bowl of oranges, that meant that evil was present or something evil was about to happen. So the short answer is yeah. Well, that's what I said earlier. It was more of a, I forget the word that I used, but that's a better word. It's more ceremonial, you know.
Kind of this. You're talking on the same level of things. Okay, go ahead, Adam.
He
Your
knows
hands
good
up.
words, whoever he is. Tell him I said thank you.
17 raccoons. Thank
It's
you over
like
there on
two
Rumble. 17
beans and a
raccoons.
sambuca, dude.
Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah. To what Dr. James was talking about, I agree. What, anons say, and or anons, excuse me, say, the news unlocks the maps, and future proofs past. That's what we're seeing, the future currently. And as things unlock in the news, unlock the maps, that's where it proves the past. Now, the things that could have already happened, or, and we're just getting the disclosure on it. So that's one thing. And then also, what were we talking about? Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it.
The
Thank you,
thing with
Adam.
when Q talked about the maps and future will confirm the map, that's important too, because people say, all right, so what the fuck is a map? And the map was key, and the map later turned into a graphic comprised of many different Q posts that were arranged in a certain order, and they were comprised of all drops that came from 4chan, which is the drops that started on 4chan in October 27th, I believe. Well, a little bit before, but the real drops started in I believe it was October 27th, and then I believe they stopped posting on 4chan before November. I don't even think 4chan lasted beyond November of I could be wrong, but something like to that effect. So what they did is because we were prepared for the 4chan drops to be the end of it. Q even said, we're leaving here for good, and that's it. You have all that you need. You have more than you know. The graphic is key. Get the graphic right. And then that. And the 4chan drops when Q dropped between 2017 October up through, I believe it was sometime in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. So Q hasn't been around posting at all in I guess nearly 4 years. During the beginning, the 4chan drops had a certain ebb and flow to them, and basically what those were about. Wait, hold on one second. Basically what those were about is they taught us about the structure of things to come, and the structure of things to come also meant the order of things to come, which was a map. That's basically what it was. In other words, one of the first things that Q talked about, one of the first things they mentioned was the attention getter. Hillary Clinton will be arrested, will be detained, and then it was, nah, she's not been detained, but we have her flagged for cross border, blah 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 blah, this that the other. So that was the attention grabber. And then what happened is we started to be told, and we were taught, and not taught there live, but we were pointed in the direction of what needs to happen in order for like the Insurrection Act to be declared. What is state secrets, like what does that mean? What powers do the presidents, does a president really have if he if there's like a declared national emergency? Trump's first day in office, before he even went to the White House on his very first day, he went to CIA headquarters in Langley, which we were told were raided, before that. So in other words, Trump went there, gave a speech, talked about removing the fifth column, that there were too many columns, and he wished they would have got a builder in charge in the first place so that he wouldn't have had to build it. So you could do your research on what the fifth column means culturally, or politically, or in names of power. So by him going there first, he did that, for a specific reason. It was mostly symbolic because remember, the CIA was the one thing that President Kennedy wanted to split into 1,000 pieces and burn it into the wind. You know what I mean? And again, so it was critical to know that before Trump's first day in office, everything had already happened. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come into office. whatever wars were fought, you know what I mean? That's a different story. That's why we had to learn what power does the president have that, he could declare an operation for 60 days without congressional approval and then get another 90 days if he needs it. So then you think about what kind of operations, and if you do a little bit of research, you can find out Trump never declared war, but what operations did he declare? And then you do the timing on them, you know what I mean? And then you see what he was following along with. He was following along with certain federal laws and orders that were in place. And what Trump did is he activated those laws and orders, which means made them current by incorporating them into all of his executive orders. The first two of his early executive orders, well, the one initially when he first came in, he declared a national emergency at the border, right? And by declaring a national emergency at the border, that gave him presidential powers, right? That were not completely unlimited, but he had the power to do during these times exactly what he, as the head of the executive branch, felt was necessary. And he didn't have that power on his own. You know what I mean? Remember, Trump didn't just get up one morning, decide to run for president you know what I mean, 2016. Number one, he'd attempted it before, right? Number two, just like these people were born and bred, to do what they do without telling us where they really come from. Trump has had his own persona and public image, throughout his entire life, and he has stated clearly that he was born for this. He knew this day would come. Right. So there's no doubt that he was groomed. He went to a military school where he excelled. You know what I mean? He went to the Wharton School, which is where the best business people go. Right. They put him on national TV for 15 years with like the best show in like every, country in the world so that everybody would see how he operates. Trump's mantra coming in was, I'm going to run this world like a business person. And yes, I did surround myself with those people. I was in that club. I took advantage of their tax loopholes. You know what I mean? I did all of the cheating that they did, all of it. I did it all. I was one of them, but not anymore. And that's why they want me dead, because I'm the only one standing between them and you. I saved you in 2016 because Hillary was supposed to win. And if that would have happened, a great many of us on this space right now, would be dead in a FEMA coffin with whoever we were living with at the time. That was real. The New World Order was real. The
Yep.
globalist thing, like that was all legit. Like all that shit you saw during the middle 2000s and stuff, like the railroads with the UN tanks and the blue hats and all that stuff during the lockdowns. They tried to scare the shit out of us with old footage by running that shit again. You know what I mean? Those were the plans that Obama had. They had a 16-year plan, that started with the hanging chads, when our country was set adrift like a lost vessel at sea without a flag, without a home. And that's when all of it happened. 9/11 put the emotional scar deep in our subconscious, so that we would never ever rise up against anyone because we were too fearful, because we didn't know who the enemy was. So they had the 16-year plan, blame the Muslims, you know what I mean? Use Iran as a proxy for whoever's really running Israel, all of that stuff. So that's why, all of this, yes, we know points to Israel, but, there's still so many questions to be answered about Israel. Like, if it is the great Satan, is it run by Israelis? I don't think so. So that's what I mean when you talk about like the Wizard of Oz and the wizard was the one behind the curtain. That's what Israel represents to me. It's that big green, wizard behind the curtain that we don't know. I believe I know. I believe it's Satan himself in whatever form that takes here on this earth. I believe we were controlled by an entity, by an evil spirit that people worshiped and believed in. And because they had all of this knowledge that they keep from us and paywall, gatekeep, I believe they had the resources and power to act out their black magic upon us and in real life. So, and I believe Trump, through his Uncle John, you know what I mean? Whatever technology, Tesla had access to, which allegedly would be the types of technology and weapons that would be able to go against both the energy that was put into these mass weapons that they used against us. And I'm talking about the technology that they use to control us, down to what we do, how we act, like our aura. Like they were actually able to penetrate, our digital aura, our electronic aura, the stuff that how we perceive, what's happening directly in front of us. Are we in danger? Are we not in danger? Like that type of stuff. That's what they were able to control. That's why we never went and grabbed guns and went after these people ourselves, because the level of control, together with all of the medicine, the PSD meds, the antidepressant, all of that stuff, together with the towers, the 5G towers that they put up, which were in service long ago to keep us dumbed down.
Dumb down.
It's
Yeah.
amazing what they could do with, vibrations and frequency and signal, if you know how to use it, and now that we know that they control the weather and they're able to manipulate the weather, how much of weather is real and not, what is weather talked about in the Bible outside of, a forced storm or tragedy by God, because he was supposed to control the weather. So that opens up like
So
lots of questions. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
and if we
Well, we have a couple.
if we come and go ahead, Jenny.
Well, no, I was just gonna say we got a couple hands here real quickly. Mel, I've unmuted your mic, but this is not a crypto space. So if you have something that goes kind of toward the topics of what we're talking about, go ahead. You're more than welcome. And then
A hundred trillion.
hold on a second,
Yeah,
Mel. And then Julianne, you came back up, so you can go right after Mel. And I do apologize for that earlier. Go ahead,
yeah.
Mel.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. This gentleman definitely knows what he's talking about. Uh, one thing I could,
Yes, he does.
yeah, one thing I could tell you is I'm literally at the precipice of putting together. I'm actually looking at 3 artificial intelligence softwares where, because I don't have the wherewithal to be able to hire the generals who approached Donald Trump to run for president and Donald Trump himself and put him in the room and shoot that scene. So we have to do it through artificial intelligence. I think we have narrowed down to a software that my editors seem to be very excited about. They're sort of very antsy to show it to me, and I'm definitely looking for people on this level, this gentleman's level, to be able to consult with us because we want to be able to tell the whole story from beginning to end. Donald Trump coming down the escalator, announcing that he's going to run for president, the sign behind him saying money exchange. This Q movement ties into the greatest reset of all time. It happened. That's a fact. I'm not going to get into the crypto story of it, but this is what this is all about. So it's going to be the most incredible story ever told. We just launched Dear Mr. President recently, Show Me the Money, which is very successful. Over 10,000 views so far and climbing. And we're about to get on some huge shows. So I think I'm qualified to do the movie for sure. And as a matter of fact, he was just talking about.
Well, Mel, I'm going to cut you off real quick because this is Rubber Duck's show, the series.
Mhm.
So, and people will come in to listen to him. So, I know you like to get on these spaces and promote yourself, and that's great. But unfortunately, here, that's not how I do my shows. So, so if you have something that kind of goes with what Rubber Duck is saying, and you want to talk about that, that's great. Otherwise, I just don't. I'm not going to take away from my guests' time because they all are on a time limit here. So I appreciate you coming up, but I got to go to these other hands. So go ahead, Julianne.
Hey, thanks, Jen. Jenny, I was just following you on Facebook too, so I'm glad I was able to
Oh, thank you.
get on this week and listen to what you're providing. And thank you, Rubber Duck. That's great information. I just posted in the bubble one of the you were talking about the orange, and I look for symbols and patterns and things like that are going on, and it reminded me of the picture of the Trump family all dressed in orange, and then I was reminded about how they call Trumpo the orange guy, and I couldn't post the whole post in, but I sent it to your Facebook, Jenny. It's about that the what the orange represents is evil, is what we've been faced with for many years, and
Oh, I did see it. I did see
yeah,
it. Thank you.
you're welcome. And I did also post the Sacred Blue Tent. It talks about the Jesus strand. Great information in there. If you there's I think 5 hours of audio about the bloodlines and things like that. So the enormity of this is it's crazy insane about every avenue you can go down, and but yeah, I like what you were talking about. I was sitting by the beach. It was way too windy. There was no way I could talk, but um, I like what you were talking about with the aliens and with the cabal. They always put things in front of us over the years. It was like The Simpson, like Rubberduck was saying, and you know, um, like all of these movies, like Men in Black and just The Fifth Element, and I think that we were held back for so many things, and um, I think we're going to be, the disclosure is just insane. I was listening to a space this morning, and it reminded me of, it talked about there was a guy in Canada that he went out and spent $50 on peaches, Del Monte peaches. And I was like, why would somebody do that? And he was talking about that the company is going to be going, dissolving. It reminded me of when Trump was in the Oval Office, and a period of time he was introducing all of these companies and uh, the medical profession. Uh, and then they brought a couple from the Del Monte, and they were donating money to children. I think it was like $100 million or something. So I think the plan's in play. It all depends on what you're looking at. And Rubber Ducky, you're just right on. There's just so much, and it's exciting times, and I think that it is the greatest time to be alive right now. We're watching the biggest uh, transformation in history, and so it's been rough, but hopefully we're all finding some peace in what's been going on, because it certainly has. The truth has been coming out, and that's what's hard right now, and it's going to get a little bit rougher when the truth comes out. So just totally excited about being on your space this morning, and yeah, I'll land with that. Thank you so much, Rubber Ducky.
Thank you, Julianne. Did you want to respond or say anything to that, Rubber Duck?
Couple of things. Like I forget the dude before that came in, the promoter, but
Oh yeah, hold on. He
Mel.
left. He's messaging me in the
that's fine.
background, and
That's fine.
he does that all the time. So that's why I had to say what I say, because you're not going to come in and promote yourself on my show, take up from you, my guest. That's not how I run it. So
Gotcha,
no.
gotcha. So what I was going to say was, hold on, give me a second. It'll come back to me. Okay. So Q never mentioned the word reset. Q never mentioned XRP, never mentioned Bitcoin, never mentioned Nasara Jasara, never said everyone's going to get rich, never said that there's going to be a black swan event, did mention there'd be a precipice, and did tell us how bad the precipice was going to be. But outside of that, that's why I don't have the wherewithal to comment on like stuff like that. I kind of listen to other people that are plugged in, but then in my opinion, that's not part of my 40,000 foot view. Like that's not my purvey, because I was only exposed to the information that Q put out there and any associated research. So because that's what I do. That's my specialty. Everyone's got their gig. So, but that's why I try to be careful not to get swept up and obsessed with all of that, because we just don't know. So, but the smart people will tell you that also know the Q drops, that but of course something like that has to come out of it. And I remember Field McConnell had the best way of explaining it, because Field McConnell on many of his shows, he got into the Zim and all that stuff, the phone numbers, all that wacky stuff that used to come out, and he researched it all. And there was a point in time too where Field actually was in possession of what our new digital currency would look like. I still have those
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
screenshots, because we haven't seen anything yet quite like it. So but that'll be something in the future. But Field never used the words and the terms, because just like everything else, like the word conspiracy and conspiracy theory, that's an algorithm word. Nasara, Jasara, those are algorithm words. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
I think that's going to
and you
change.
get it all, you get like all like wrapped up into it. So I just say, whatever that's baked into, it will come to an inversion of wealth in some way, because if it was the top 1% of humanity, and it was coincidentally the same 1% that was in possession of 99% of the wealth, that also committed these atrocities against humanity all together, like Major Rico, like all together. So, if Trump's early executive orders went directly to tariff style punishments, tariffs for countries, and of course, different types of penalties, for people or persons, because if you owned a yacht, you don't own it no more. If you were involved in that shit, if whatever you own, beachfront property,
It's gone.
95% of beachfront property on the East Coast and West Coast were owned by people that have either died, resigned, or been caught up in shit over the last 10 years, internationally speaking. So where are
All right,
they?
Doc, I've got some.
Go ahead.
I've got some hands here before because I've got a show at 1 my time. What is it? Would be I don't know, 4 your time. Yeah. Go ahead, Tina Q.
Hi, Rubber Duck. I just posted in the pill. I want you to look at it real quick. McDonald's just posted this a few hours ago. I want you to look at it and tell me your first thought, if you could. It's a 10-second video from McDonald's.
And while we're waiting for that, I think I saw other hands up here.
Oh, it's
Was
just
it
Ronald
Adam or
McDonald sitting in a desert,
Dr.
isn't
James?
it?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's wearing green shoes. That's interesting. Green means go. And but again, I understand what you're getting at. I believe the whole McDonald's thing, in so much as what they make their food out of, what we know that to be or was. I believe that.
Oh, we lost you.
You
Rubber
must have
Duck.
Sorry about
stepped
that.
off
My
the
son
porch there.
called. I don't know how he got through. Anyway, the whole McDonald's thing. When the first time that Trump brought, and it was specific a collegiate team. He also brought, I believe, a couple of semi-pro athletic teams, but I know he brought a couple of college championship teams during his first term, and he fed them all McDonald's.
Well,
And that was the signal to us that that was clean. And I think a second version of that confirmation came on the plane when they showed RFK and Rubio and all of them sitting at the table, you know what I mean, eating McDonald's. And then there was Trump also working at McDonald's. Because let me
yeah.
speak, honey, because if there's a mic open, I lose my shit, and I mean my train of thought. So just mute your mic for a second. Because remember the whole McDonald's narrative, you know what I mean? The whole, you know what I mean? Rabbi Finkelstein, that whole, all that's all legit. The slaughterhouses, they know that sausage meat, they know that pigs eat humans. That's why they had, protection, kosher protection over all of their slaughterhouses. Like fucking nuclear scientists going to check and see, if they have weapons of mass destruction. You couldn't get into these facilities. They were protected by nuclear silos. And a lot of those places were blown up during the lockdowns. A lot of the places where chickens were farmed, there were hundreds of facilities, up and down the food chain, the food processing chain. And if you remember, I mean, I'm talking weird shit like planes flying into them, weird explosions. So again, all of that, and you could throw chemtrails into that, because I see the trails up in the sky, but they're no longer gray or dark. They're perfectly white. So remember, for everything that they did, even if it's not real, we were going to be shown a polar opposite of what they did to us. As far as what's real, what reality they're going to, what timeline they're going to use to bang us back into reality so that we could start, and all agree on an agreed upon history, whether it's going to be Trump and whoever's behind him that's going to get to choose, whatever history will be written about these times. I still think that there's a hell of a lot of disclosure truth that we have to learn about our past before we can agree on a future, let alone a present. The present, I think is the one thing that doesn't matter at all, is the present, because it's just noise. So and that's why the only thing that you can do to survive mentally and emotionally, and still come out of this unharmed, sleeping like a baby, right? And helping everyone around you like a beaming light, is just be ready for anything. Don't be ready for everything bad to happen. Just be ready for all of the cartoony bullshit to be broadcast on the TV. And if you see anything happen in your real life that they pull off, like if you happen to live in one of these weird states or whatever, just know that it's that. It's something that they're pulling off, because there's no way that humanity would be allowed, or anybody in charge of humanity allowed, to predict when an alien invasion would take place. Plus, we also knew that the fakers and all of the deceivers of our lifetime over generations, going back to the pictures that they fake drew on caveman walls of aliens, right? So they really went back and did everything, a complete mind job. They might have even taken 1,000 years away from our recorded history. We don't even know, in order to perpetrate a mud flood. You know what I mean? So there's like all of these different and I'm one of those people. I don't need to know about their black magic spells and all the bullshit. I don't need to know that. I just need to know, what did they lie? What did you lie to me about? Do I need to be stuck in this 9 to 5 like matrix thing? If not, is there something else that I'm supposed to be doing? Like, are there other messages from my God that I've not been told? Right? And if so, can I please have those volumes? So that way we can get on with what's in our spirit. Otherwise, you're just going to have like a bunch of whack-a-moles when disclosure happens. Whenever they say it's over, they can't just leave us running around bumping into each other like a bunch of pinballs. Like, there's going to have to, like after September 11th, yes, it was a psyop, but it was all agreed upon. Everybody agreed there were planes. For whatever the reason, it had to be this way. There was the Muslims and the planes, right? And we didn't go kill everybody. They did, but we didn't. We lived with each other. We had empathy for the Muslims. We didn't want to be mean to them, because we know, even though we thought other people wanted to fucking kill them. And that's where you had division over there. But they were smart. They started walking around the United States dressing like regular black people, blending into the culture, hip hop and rap, quickly accelerating to the tops, with these full Muslim Islamic beliefs and Sharia law, but they're white people. No, they're not. No, they're not. Remember, our enemy is not a color. Our enemy is a behavior. It's an entity. It's an ideology. And anybody could get, of any color or race, can get wrapped up into that. You know what I mean? Because no matter what color you are, you still got to practice the same ritual. If you're going to buy into the club, your sacrifices will be the same as anyone. And because they control you, you will be forced to behave a certain way, because you are now part of the facade that is our reality. And that Truman Show, they have to keep it going at all costs. And I think we're being made to believe that that's still the ongoing operation until whatever precipice switch, Trump flips up or down, we go through. And that will begin the next narrative.
Thank you, Rubberduck. Real quickly, everybody, I want to address something real quickly for that individual that came in and just wanted to try to promote himself, Mel Carmine. Um, as you guys know, that when somebody comes into my space, or any space for that matter, and what they want to do is just promote themselves, and he does in a lot of spaces, I'm going to shut it down, because it's taken away from my time and my guests' time, because my guests give me 90 minutes, an hour, whatever it may be. Derek Johnson sometimes 2 hours, depending on just whatever people have going on in their life. Don't come in my space, try to promote your stuff, because that's what you always do. And then don't DM me in the back talking your bullshit, because you know what? I come right back at you and I will block you, ban you. We all know who you are. You are a patriot. You had nothing of substance to give me in my space here with Rubberduck and Dr. James, other than you just trying to promote yourself. We see you all the time in these spaces. So if that's you, I'm saying in general, this is how I run my spaces. It's about the voices of my guests and the voices of my audience. So don't come in here trying to promote yourself. Shit, I don't even promote myself. My guests don't even promote themselves. And you want to come in here and promote your shit? I hear you all the time. Like, you are a patriot. So get the fuck out of here. You don't have to come in my spaces. I don't want you here. And I'm sorry to the audience that's hearing this, but I'm going to address it, because you're not going to DM me in the back, talk your shit, because I'll just blow it up right here for you. And, I don't do this often, but when you want to come in my space, be disrespectful and then talk shit, yeah, then I'm going to say something to you. So that guy will no longer be in my space. I will no longer follow him. I will block and ban that piece of shit because it's just it's not gonna happen. So I apologize, guys, but that's how I work my spaces. I do mine different. I do my shows differently. They're shows. They're not 24-hour spaces. I want you guys to get the most information you can in a good amount of time to where I keep your attention span, as does my guest. We don't lose it. And then, my guest comes back next week. It's a great thing that we've got going on here with you, the audience, and my guests. So I appreciate you all, but I'm just gonna let you know it kind of pissed me off. So I'm gonna address it right here. That's how I work it, and it's done. And yeah, so if you guys, I just found out my 1 o'clock show. We're having to postpone that with John Baxter because he has a flight that he is being delayed on. So we'll push that to next Monday. He'll be back next Monday, so we can go a little bit extra time, Rubber Duck, if you have some extra time. If not, I understand because I do have another one that was. I have 4 shows today, guys. I'm only doing shows today just because, like I said, I have graduations and promotions to go to, schools, end of year school. So we can go a little bit longer if you'd like to, Rubber Duck. But I do have one at 3 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock your time, Rubber Duck. And but I have to. I can't do a whole. We can probably. What are you looking at time wise, Rubber Duck? How you doing on time?
I'm here. I'm good. As long as, there's something to talk
Okay.
about, people have anything that they want to, talk about or discuss. If they're not, fucking retards, then I'd
Yeah.
love to have them up here.
Well, just an FYI, Rubber Duck and Dr. James, you're probably going to get a message because you see how he kind of integrated you. Oh, I could use you guys with
Oh,
your information. So,
already got plenty of them, and
oh
I
boy.
followed your suit and
How
blood
do these
because
people get into your DMs? I mean, I don't, that's
we
weird.
followed in early in his space when he wanted to know something about my work, and then all of a sudden started sending me all these things for this movie he was doing and promoting his projects, and that's all I've ever seen from him since. He starts with asking one question about, "Hey, I'm interested in your stuff," and you're like, "Oh, cool," and then like, "Okay, that's nice. Here, look at this. Look at this. Look at
Those
this.
are
Look at this,"
those are
and it
like
goes
the
on.
people,
Anyway,
that come into spaces and they're in there for 2 minutes and they say they interrupt everybody and say, "Yeah, I gotta go. I'm going into a 4G area and I'm gonna lose my tower." Or the people that say,
I'm gonna go
"Let me
fishing in
just,
45 minutes. I gotta go
yeah,
fishing in 45 minutes.
yeah, I
See,
gotta
and
go. Yeah, my
and
pussy
we
hurts." Da, 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 da.
we experienced it real time, everybody. So this is why I say be careful who you listen to, who you follow, what you're putting in your mind. It happens in these spaces, including mine, and and it happens in my, whether it be Telegram, whether it be Rumble, we get them in the comment areas, whatever. But I just shut it down real quickly, guys. I just remove it. If it's like in Rumble and you're making that comment, whatever, I'll just remove the comment. I'll ban you, and then you can't come in and say those things in the comments. And we'll do the same thing here. But you see.
And if you follow people like that, it affects your algorithm.
Yeah,
Every single person that follows you makes you out. And it's not just the one, it's if there's more than one like that, it makes your account algorithm heavy. So that's historically, that's why I've never, and again, I've never had a complaint about my algorithm in 10 years. No complaints, nothing, nada, never, nada, nothing. And if you're able to watch who you follow, that literally means watch who you follow. I mean,
yeah,
if you're
it's
following somebody, what does that mean? That means you could see them and you're following them. Like when my son says, "Follow me to the store, Dad," that's your following. So you should watch them, you should see them and understand them. So, if
and
somebody
that's
put a
why I
gun to
say
my,
what I
if
say.
somebody, one second, if somebody put a gun to my head and asked me to tell them like one or two sentences about every single person that I follow, I'd be able to do that.
Yep, and that's why I say what I say all the time in the beginning of my PSAs, everybody. So we've addressed it. We're moving on, but I just want to let you know you got a real time example of it, and it's handled. So he won't be coming back. But I think Miles, you had your hand up. So go ahead up. Go ahead, Miles. You are up.
All right. Thank you very much for the mic. Um, a quick comment and then one question. So I've always paid attention to what is on the top of Trump's priority list. Remember when Schumer said the intel agencies have 6 waves of Sunday to get you? Well, when he first came in and January 20th of 2017, where did he go? he went to Langley and talked to the CIA. I remember that. It's still out there. You can watch the speech that he gave him. And then when he came back this time, what was the first thing he did? The Sovereign Wealth Fund. So I always paid attention to what's at the top of his priority list. Okay, that was the comment. The question is, Rubber Duck, have you ever read Prussiagate on Substack? And if you have, would you make a comment on that?
I have not, so therefore I can't. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, that's where, remember when Trump said the orange of the investigation? That was the Prince of Orange to direct you to Prussiagate.
That's pretty slick.
Oh, rubber duck. Oh, you don't want to. You don't want to respond to that, or you can't.
No, I never. I don't. Yeah, I don't. Sadly, I don't. I don't. It's if I don't know, I
You
don't
don't
Well,
have
speak.
anything to say.
Every time I try to speak on something I don't know anything about, it never goes well because bullshit
yeah,
comes
and I
out.
don't want to take up the space and tell you about it. It's on Substack,
If you put it,
Prussiagate.
can you put a link in the pill? Because I will read it.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's about the Prussians and what their plan was for us a long time ago. It's all being played out.
Yep, and that's the key, everybody. Their plan was for us. Now they're taking it and turning it on the evildoers. So yes, Miles, if you have something like that, if you can put it in the purple pill for the audience to read, that would be awesome. Thank you. All right, go ahead,
And
Golden
by the
Age.
way, can I say, Miles,
Sure.
I'm familiar with that, and that was pretty slick the way you worked that in there, brother. You got a follow out of that. I'd like to be watching actually what you're posting out there.
Good. Then maybe you
Um,
could get into
that's
my DMs later and tell me what that was about.
that's interesting. I mean, it's bigger than just Prussia, but yeah, you're seeing it fighting hard today. So yeah, interesting.
Go ahead, Golden Age.
Yeah, hey, good to hear you guys. I missed the first portion of your space today, so I'll listen to that on record. One of the things I really enjoy listening to about Duck is that he knows a lot, but he also is, wise enough to follow what we do in the program of, 12-step recovery, which is, it says in the big book that we realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us in your morning meditation.
Tell me I
Ask him what you
forgot. Show me I remember. Involve me I understand. That's an old one, but a good one.
correct. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick, and the answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot give away something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us, which is kind of how I've lived a lot of my life with the whole military operation that's been going on under the leadership of Trump and white hats and whatever it all involves, because it's always constantly changing. It's layer by layer. We learn more as we go along, which is why I do really enjoy listening to you, because you know so much. You're able to catalog things. You're a deep thinker, and a lot to learn. And we're still all just learning, because none of us really know how it's all going to unfold. But we do get a sense of how it is unfolding, and it can help us to draw some parallels and some lines. And it's just a really, really great experience. So God bless everyone who's here. Continue to stay the course, and whatever comes our way, God has got us. So that's all I have for today.
Well said. Well said. That
Amen.
goes.
Thank you,
That
Golden
that's
Age.
why the knowing, just being aware, like casually aware of what this plan is that's coming true into reality as we speak. You don't need to know the whole thing. Part of it is because it really doesn't matter. Like I say this time and again, the whole Q operation, in so much as what the Anons were involved with, that happened, over a 5-year period, 2017 to 2022. That's it. End of story. Done deal. Whether they come back or not, who knows? We were promised another Q&A, you know what I mean? But that was done, that promise was made with the most recent drops, and those drops needed to be double, triple, quadruple confirmed. And there's still a subsection of anons that don't believe any of the recent drops. You know what I mean? I take everything for what it is, because if you're looking at everything from a wide enough perspective, you could see value in everything that they put out there, everything. But most importantly, in my opinion, at least for now, is the early part of the drops, because that lays down the foundation, that lays down the proof that what we're going through could actually happen legally and lawfully, because they needed to explain to us back then what we were involved with. And we're not all. I never spoke the way that I did, nor did I have the knowledge set, or was I aware of any of the data points that I picked up after taking the oath to do this thing. You know what I mean? So, but I took it like most of us did. We took it seriously. We got to learn this shit. I didn't go to college. You know what I mean? So this, to me, I took it like as if I would have taken a serious college course. Except it was double the time and double the research. But we came out of it ahead so far. So, in my opinion, you don't really need to know what's going to happen, because we don't know when or what or anything like that. We were just told, listen, this is what's happening. The heavy lifting is over. But the hard part, which is the hearts and minds of humanity, and what history, will be adopted moving forward. It seems to me that in the first, at least of the 250-year history of our country, and the reason why we were told it was set up and the way it was set up, we all know that only lasted 2 years, or 3 years, because in 1779, that's when Washington himself told us, when he wrote letters back to the United States, I'm sorry, back to England, telling us that his biggest worry was the Bavarian section of Freemasonry, which had turned bad against, they turned into Luciferians, which later became the Illuminati. And those were the ones that, had the power, and they also had the knowledge of how to conduct deception and black magic and, spellcraft and stuff like that. And, when you blend that into a society and you take over that society at the top that very much relied, in so much as information that was used on how to live, how to make decisions, how to do personal things like live your life, and what part of society do you represent, that was all made up for us and created for us. You know what I mean? And when we were born, our parents, our mom signed that dotted line on our birth certificates and set us out to sea unwillingly, into the paper system. I call it the paper trail. That's all we are. So there's going to be a point, and that goes to sovereignty too, and statehood and all that stuff. That's why Trump talks about statehood. I really believe this whole thing ends with the Republic of the United States, being the entire Western Hemisphere, from Antarctica all the way down to the tip of South America. And I believe that every single country will be converted into a state. And in other words, they'll still be, there will still be, the countries and their names, but they will have statehood under the republic, and they will all be protected by the republic, by the muscle, because the United States of America through Washington D.C. represented the power of the three, the city of three states, which was the power structure of the world. Their new world order consisted of the muscle, right? Think of it like a mafia family. They had the muscle, which was the United States military, and that power was centralized in Washington D.C. And then they had the money, all the shekels, and they get to decide what the shekels are worth all around the world. That was London. And then was the deception. We got to deceive everybody so that they could give us the shekels and let us control them, because the deception needed to work in order for, DC and the city of London to function as the money capital and as the muscle of earth. You had to maintain the deception. And that deception was through the Vatican and the Pope. Let's put one man and a subsect of a religion between the largest group of Christians on earth and their God. And they did that very well. And then they said, well, while we're at it, why don't we take the holy site for the Christians and let's put it on the border with the Muslims, and let's put the Jews over here too. And let's not let them step onto each other's land, but let's put a big fuck temple on top of everything so that they now have something to fight over. And what I'm telling you is, all you don't see evidence that that's all gone, that whole structure. It is. It is gone, and the new structure is what's being rolled out every day, which is why Earth doesn't collectively get up and operate as a world unless Donald Trump says something. It's literally like that. The Earth as we know it, and we only know Earth through these communication devices. That's how we learned about what's going on around us, is our TV and the internet, which is our phones, right? Other than that, we learn from our local what? Community, neighborhood, the block that we live on, right? You can't say, well, I watch local news. Please, there's a whole shampoo commercial, and they'll tell two friends that we know about the news, the Mockingbird, right? So that whole thing was set up for us years ago, and that's not there anymore. So that whole signal spyware media apparatus has been taken over, commandeered, and it's become the greatest show of all time. And it's being forced on our necks, whether we like it or not. And the only way to properly deal with it for me is to understand what it is and why it had to be that way. Because the one thing the Q team always promised us is that we would understand why military was the only way for this to work. Just like when our country was first formed, the military was the only way for the United States to be formed in 1776. Why? Because the United States Army was created in 1775. And it was with that very army that our country was created. It was a military government, right? With military laws and orders until they got every Declaration of Independence and all that shit straight. It took some time, right? It took how long? You wouldn't believe it if I told you. But what we're going through now is the same thing that we went through back then, but for the first time. From a common law point of view, and the common law people will understand this, we're coming onto the land for the first time in our country's history. We're becoming citizens of the Republic for the first time in history, and what that really meant and what it was really supposed to mean. That our country, that our republic, that our constitution and the way we live were literally taken from parts of the Old Testament and created, not so that it could be a Judeo-Christian society, but because that was the biblical way of doing things. In other words, our forefathers, they believed that there were certain truths, unalienable rights that we had from God, and you couldn't get, and it's stated in the Bible. So they basically went off of that. And then you had these Luciferians that came in 2 years later, and they put this veil over everything like dust, like sticky dust. And like the Luciferian fairies went over the whole world, and they sprinkled this fairy dust, and it stuck to everything. It stuck to the White House. It stuck to all the churches. It stuck to all the schools and the streets. It stuck to everything. And everything that it stuck to, it took the original reason why that institution was created for us and turned it into whatever the opposite would be at that time, right? So immigration offices were turned into what? Tax offices, DMV, right? All of that stuff, all of the healing centers, these temples, these beautiful places that were made for healing, with vibrations and with all sorts of stuff like that. The bells that they got rid of from the old world, whatever that was or represents, they're the ones that got rid of all of that. And they gave us, by putting this sticky dust, which I call the veil. Consequently, Trump has always referred to the China dust, and he's also referring to uranium dust. Trump's talking a lot about dust, and he says that for a reason, because it's and then if you think about that imaginary dust that they created, then think about the real dust that they were spraying on us. Dust capable of poisoning all of our foods to make sure that we live to a certain point in time. Dust that would create every sickness and illness that would affect only humans, because they had to have their industries, and you could pick whatever industry you want to associate with health, right? Every single one. They created it. Those that were created to help us, these healing centers, they converted them into what? Deception devices, churches. They converted all of them to the, church is in your heart. That's what God always spoke about. That's what Jesus spoke about. You know what I mean? I come from a family of Southern Baptists, a bunch of fucking retards. You know what I mean? But it's true, and they don't know shit either. Either you're a Christian or you're not. Either you believe in God and you were raised a Jew and you believe in the Torah, or you don't. Either you're a Muslim, you go for the Quran, or you don't. But the whole Islamification bullshit, that's got the whole 72 virgins and I got to kill everyone. Fuck you. Fuck all of you. Because you'll die well before we do. I promise you that. Because our POTUS told us to go out and buy guns and ammo during the lockdowns. And I know that a bunch of smartasses said, well, we're coming over and we're multiplying in your country. Well, why don't you take a look at Britain right now, where the fucking infiltrators that were all stuffed into a big Trojan horse and let loose all throughout Great Britain, those motherfuckers don't even want to be there anymore. And when we're done with them, they won't want to be here either. Believe me. And we won't need any bit of racism. Because once you understand that it's not black versus white, that it's a bunch of fucking fakers that are acting like black people and white people, and they're really fighting with themselves so that we jump on board and fight with each other, that's the deal. And that's how deception works. And when I first realized that, I'm like, what the fuck? Racism? Literally, don't say the word and it'll go away. But you can't do that because we have the internet, we have brainwashed people, and the TV. So that's why we have a long way to go. And it's not like we're going to wake up one day and the TV is going to be gone forever. And all the satanic shit is going to be gone forever. Satan will exist. Evil will exist, probably just as much as it ever has. They're just not going to be running the world, because it wasn't meant to be that way. So maybe that's where the biblical part of this comes in, right? And if we are living in biblical times, then we will all be spoken about in that way if these are all biblical times. And I take that seriously too. And I'm just a black rubber duck avatar in this whole thing. I won't be remembered. Nobody knows my name or anything like that. And we didn't sign up for that. If this shit gets fixed and we come out of this thing all together, kumbaya, which is the way it's supposed to be, that's great. I'm not in this for a boatload of cash. You know what I mean? Because that's not the way it's supposed to work anyway. The real Nasara Jasara would have worked similar, to if somebody gave you a bank account at a casino, and this is how much you get to spend for the weekend, and you can't spend it on anything but what's sold here at the casino. That's the way those accounts were supposed to work anyway. You know what I mean? With all the taxes and money and stuff. You would be able to use it, but you would only be able to use it to pay for things that the system made you pay for, like car payments, like interest, like mortgage, like food, right? All the stuff that they say, you can't go do this because we provided, and the corporations that we created, the mini ones, the stores, all of it. You can't do any of it. So all that's going away. And you can't just take it all away at once because we're human. We wouldn't know what the fuck to do with each other. We would just be bouncing around and we'd probably find something to fight about. So if Trump is getting us all together in the spirit of America and all of that, and he's told each and every country around the world, you should be a nationalist too. You should want what's best for you, and you have like all these, like take Iran, for example. I'm only 50 years old. I'm in my early 50s. And I remember having Iranian friends in the 70s and 80s. I mean, just like we had Puerto Rican friends and Jewish friends back in the day. They're all good people. And I know that because we spent time with them, broke bread with them, best friends, all of that. That's how it was growing up. You know what I mean? But then again, maybe that's when the part of this simulation really got hot and heavy as they got closer to their, end of their days plans for us. And I'm sure that's what had something to do with the year 2012 when President Barack Obama, signed the legislation that would get rid of the Smith-Mundt Act, which is what has always protected us from military grade, deception broadcast. In other words, propaganda. And propaganda is another word that I hate to use. I wish there was a better one, because it gets wrapped up like conspiracy theory.
Fake
When you,
news.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, fake news is a good one, but fake news has also become like cartoony. Because when you say to somebody, do you really know what the Smith-Mundt Act did? Well, yes, it's they can't broadcast. It protected us from propaganda. Okay. Do you really know what that propaganda is? Well, what do you mean? Do you really know what it is? Well, do you really know what that technology is that they're broadcasting to you over the television, over the cell towers, the satellites, whatever you want to, wherever this signal comes from that goes through our human bodies magically and allows us to talk on a cell phone, allows us to watch high definition TV so close you could see the sweat on the quarterback's chin. That all comes at a cost, and I don't think we ever truly understood the cost, because the closer they let us get into our life, that's what all of the 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 6G, all of those different generations were for getting the technology closer and closer and closer to our bodies before it would become a chip inside of us. First it was a TV, then it was a computer, then it was a laptop, then it was a phone, then it's the watch on your wrist, closer and closer and closer to you being connected to this technology until those people would agree to have it put inside of them. And some of them did during the lockdowns. They at least put it on the internet. Could have been fake to scare us. You know what I mean? But that, so there were choices that people made. There were ceremonious, symbolic chips that people put in that maybe were, the mark of the beast. You know what I mean? Maybe the choices were made, maybe the choices that people made about the vaccine, maybe that was their choice. And too bad. I know that's horrible. That's a horrible thing. And maybe Trump, at the end of this, if it showed that he was presented with a choice that he could not do anything about, we don't know if that's the truth. We don't know if Trump came into a situation and said, listen, this is going to happen on this day, and they're going to release this virus, and there's not a fucking thing you could do about it because it's set right now to kill everyone on Earth except about a half a million people, or a half a billion people, 500 million. Well, there's 8 billion people, so they're going to kill 7.5 billion. Yes, but we can stop it. And there's people that's still going to die, but we could regulate it. We can get it to the point where people will die of it, but we could do other things that it won't change the average number of people that will die every year. We can fix that. But that's, so we don't know if a choice like that was made. You know what I mean? So there's just so much that we don't know. You know what I mean? So, and that's why you have to be open-minded to all of it, So that's why the promises that were made, like your family is safe, most of what you'll see will be in the cities, like and take place in DC, in Washington, London, the Vatican. You know what I mean? We went in there, we sent Bill Barr and John Durham into the Vatican to raid it in
Real
2019.
quickly, Rubberduck, real quickly before you get too far, I want to see what these hands are. There's some hands here, and then also too, it looks like there's some breaking news. Jersey sent it to me regarding Iran. The attack that was scheduled for Iran tomorrow is being called off. President Trump has let Pete Hegseth and the chair them know to hold off because I guess there's some serious negotiations they're trying to do. But if they don't do it by a certain time, I think they're going to go through with it. So FYI, that's out there. I'm going to repost that. But I know Adam and Miles had their hand up, and you can, if you want to speak on that too, because you did mention a little bit about Iran a little bit ago. Rubber Duck, you're more than welcome to do that. But there's a couple hands, and I give you guys seriously, if you guys have questions for Rubber Duck, feel free. I mean, he's giving you a lot of great information. And don't be afraid to ask. No questions, and no question is ever a dumb question. I know people get nervous, but I mean, he's giving you a lot of great information, and I'm kind of shocked that I don't see more hands with questions for Rubber Duck because I mean, a lot of people don't know the stuff that Rubber Duck
That's
talks
okay. They're
about.
listening. I mean, that's what I
No,
used to
it's
do,
good. No, I understand they're listening, but I also encourage my audience. I'd like them to ask questions because I'm sure people have questions, and this is how we learn, right? So just as long as you're not a disruptor and coming in my space to disrupt, you're good. But there's no stupid questions, so don't be afraid. Go ahead. I don't know if it was Adam first or Miles,
I'll
but
be short.
okay, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, in regards to what you were talking about earlier with the FEMA camps and such, I believe, I think it was called Agenda 21 from like they developed it in late 80 through 93, maybe, or 92. And it was developed with the UN. Does that line up?
so far 100%.
All right, yeah, no, I just wanted to give people something to look up, Agenda 21, because they've got Agenda 2030 or whatever. Good luck with that. uh, I think, yeah, like you said, it was diverted. We dealt with Biden for 4 years, or the Bidens. But yeah,
So,
yeah.
so Agenda 21, yeah, they had
That
simulations and
that
everything for this whole C-19 thing. So, and Fauci came out, I think 2017, warning us at some conference that something big was going to
yeah.
be hitting virus wise.
So
So, yeah.
what I was gonna get to, I'll land on this. What was planned is Hillary would get into office, and I would believe it would be her second term. Because I was thinking 2021. They got that kind of laid out, and then they probably implemented it, whatever, 16 years ago, whatever. But I think it would have her second term. I think her first term would have been focused on revoking Second Amendment rights, disarm the people, and then go for and that's where I believe President Trump came in instead of her, and their hand was forced, and they only released a 99.1 survival rate virus. So that was a lot of fear mongering. Yeah, you saw the guy smoking cigarettes and body bags, crap like that. So that's the thing. We
And
missed a big one that would have been horrible compared to whatever we experienced through COVID. It would have
listen,
been
if
like
she
a
would have,
hundred times
if
worse.
if she would have won, we wouldn't be having these conversations. We'd
Nah,
already be in FEMA camps, and
yeah.
it's already starting to show with this quote
Guillotine
unquote.
purchases by Obama.
Hang on a second, Adam. It's already starting to happen with this hantavirus, the staged act, the crisis actors, everybody. So those are already coming out. They're showing people, running into the scene when they're not supposed to. So it's just more fear, everybody. It's C19 2.0. Don't fall for it. Just say no. Thank you, Adam. All right, go ahead, Miles, and then Jersey, and then I think Brad came out. Oh, Dr. James, Brad, Susan. But go ahead, Miles.
Thanks again. Yeah, the links down in the bubble. Pay attention to the Kaisers. Those were the emperors of Prussia. Pay attention to the bankers, especially before the Rothschilds. And here's a little homework for you. Since our Secretary of War is a Templar, who are the Knights Templar? And how are they connected to the Cathars? You got some homework to do, guys, because I think it's all key to what's going on now. The Templars and the Cathars.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Miles. Thank
Well, the
you.
original Templars were the protectors, and as I recall, if I'm not mistaken, at the very beginning of Trump's term, the Templars ceremoniously were allowed back into the Vatican because I do remember that article, and I remember the clip of them being allowed back into the Vatican for the first time, and who knows,
What are they
eons.
supposed to protect, Rubberduck?
You got me there. I
The
know
Holy
that
Yeah,
Land.
they're
The Holy
protectors.
Land.
holy.
They're the protectors of the Holy Land, where Jesus was born.
Yep. Rubber Duck, you're fired today. I'm kidding. All right, go
Told
ahead,
you
Jersey.
I don't know everything.
I'm giving you shit.
Are
No, I
you
love you.
saying Israel should be a Christian nation?
I'm saying I don't even think Israel is over there. I
Yeah,
believe
I believe
Israel
it's
is over
here.
here.
Yep,
And I
here.
believe the plans they had for the greater Israel had nothing to do with Iran ever. Their greater Israel was the United States of America, So, and
Yeah.
if you don't believe me, just try to find one city or village in Israel or artifact that's over there that is not here, that also exists over there in Palestine. So I guess the real question is, which one did Hollywood create, and where's the real deal? So, and
Yeah.
who knows if they'll tell us that, by the way. That's one of those things, like, who the fuck
We'll
knows? But
soon find out, right? Or not. Go ahead, Jersey. And then after Jersey, Dr. James. And then Brad and then Susan. Go ahead, Jersey.
You know what? I'll flip flop with Dr. James because it sounded like you had something to add into that.
Go for it, Dr. James.
Oh, thanks, Jersey. Yeah, no, I was really sort of more of a generalization on what like we're in an information war, right? And it gives people, I see a lot of responses to things, and people asking, okay, do you, and they asked you this earlier a little bit, Rubberduck, about did you support the post of this or that particular person, right? And a person that has, I'm not going to say it, but had great content, but their information has absolute factual stuff in it, and then there's always something extremely fringe, uh, something that would be like, oh my, provoke strong emotion and obviously like things that people think this is obviously not true, right? So it's a blending of fact and fiction. So the enemy's done this forever. They want us to vote on something. They don't tell us that we want to pass this so that we can take this from you. They say, here's what we're going to do, but here's why it's good for you. And they say it in semantics such that you think that it's good for you and you vote for it, and boom. So on steroids forever, their tactic is to take factual information, blend it with fiction, make you believe what they want you to believe, right? So everybody thinks that's bad. But at the same time, they see things posted by anons or from things about drops and whatnot. They expect every single little detail to be true. We were told disinformation is necessary. Why is it necessary? Because it's a war, right? You have good and evil. And if you just throw all your cards out there, then they know everything and can make a strategy and defeat you, right? So you have to throw um, disinformation around. And misinformation really is just a subcategory of disinformation, right? So it's really disinformation. These spaces that you hear where Jenny's rolling this with Rubberduck and similar spaces, these are not that type of space. These are to the best of their knowledge spaces, right? This is not speculation, nor is it, I mean, there's plenty of spaces for speculation, right? But yeah, so like this all ties into other drops too. Like, how do you get evidence presented in court? And the thing about the tactic, right? The general tactic of the disinformation is that, like getting things into court. If you send some note to somebody and there's no bullet points or nothing really stands out, they might scan it and just put it aside and not really see it being important, right? But if you throw something really controversial up in there, it'll get your attention, right? And you may go through it and dismiss some of it, but the whole memo will stick in your mind, right? And the point will. And whatever salient points are in there will stick with you because of that erroneous inflammatory point that was included. So we're seeing these techniques happen all the time with a lot of big anons, with a lot of big players. Um, and a lot of people talk about those things and ambiguities and what Trump does, this and that. But I think what you're getting in here is just the facts, ma'am. It's like, to the best of our knowledge, this is what we think is going on, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a darn good space and a great format. And thanks for being here. And I wondered if you had any comments on the disinformation information thing we've got going on here as well.
Well, that what you said about misinformation and disinformation is Q never said they never said that they were going to feed us disinformation. You know what I mean? We were told misinformation is real and necessary. And I believe that the difference between misinformation and disinformation is intent. If your intent is to fool somebody in a nefarious way, you're going to give them disinformation so that they go out and make fools of themselves and create false narratives. If you're given misinformation, most likely you're given the misinformation to keep you off the trail of something that you're on. And it was done to us forever. Narratives would be created, just to keep, people off track. I personally believe that some of the narratives that came over the last 10 years were created because Anons got too close to the script as they expected. You know what I mean? And I think part of that was why we were all kicked off the internet and, after January 6th, because collectively we had figured it out. We knew COVID was coming. They told us in the very beginning about COVID, is this about a disease or is this about an election? And then they taught us all about, pay to play, not pay to play. what is it? That Fauci was gain of function. We learned about gain of function before, we all agreed that we wouldn't take any vaccine if there was one. We didn't participate in any of the COVID stuff. Like me, like I stayed home. I lost my job, just like everyone else, lost everything, did the unemployment thing, had to, restart myself and, became a realtor because, the industry I was in, aerospace and defense, they wouldn't hire me back at the age of 50. So blah, blah, blah. Then my best man, my best friend, my brother-in-law, 55 years old, he drops dead on a ventilator. He had multiple sclerosis and, he died alone on one of those things. So I was like, wow, this is fucking real. This ain't no psyop, that's for sure. But then I said to myself, but how did they know? So you move past that, and then the vaccine comes. My parents don't listen to me. So my dad goes, they both get the first two COVID jabs, the first one with the booster. I made them give me their batch numbers and they got bad batches. And, my father, 90 days after a clean PET scan, because they go every fucking year, 45 days afterwards, and he's got stage 3 colon cancer. Like total garbage. My dad's one of those healthy, old school, young looking Sicilians, handsome like me, and it just, so all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my mother's been in and out of the hospital ever since, with her insides that just don't work like they used to before they got the shot. So the thing is with anons, we were not immune to anything. We went through the same exact stuff you guys did, except we were targeted, and we were targeted because, while most people just saw a bunch of chaos, we were able to see through the chaos. But I think where we came up short, for whether it was by design or not, is because the noise of the chaos was so much louder than anything, we could have created on our own. That's what told me that if we were kicked off the internet, it was planned. And I fully believe it, for whatever the reason. One of my favorite people in the whole movement, um, other than Field McConnell, was David Straight. I don't believe he's dead. I believe he's in witness protection because, he was charged with traveling around to different parts of the country, specific parts of the country for specific reasons to lay these little common law bombs, and, how to correct your status, you know what I mean? And how to get yourself, set up as a state national, and he did that knowing that some people would catch on, some people wouldn't. He also knew that many people would catch on a little bit and try to go off half cocked, make those videos with the cops try to get out of a ticket using the common law thing and blah, 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 blah. I think that was put out there on purpose too. Some people did it, some people didn't. I worked with David directly, through my DMs, through my phone. I worked with him directly to get the paperwork. He gave me my AOR. I mean, everything, all the documents, how to make my license plate for my car, how to make, what kind of, not license, but what kind of passport, I'm sorry, identification I would have. And I had it all. I had all the case law. I still have it, all the case law, and it really is like it's an encyclopedia of documents that you literally have to carry in a folder, and then there's a script, a literal script that goes along with it. So if those of you that have ever had sales jobs before, you guys would make the perfect state nationals because it's just memorizing a script and having the documents and literally knowing how to give a pitch, how to give a presentation, and you need to know what you know better than the other person does. And that's really what that is. So that's why I never believed that everybody would just pick up and become a state national all by themselves. I do believe that all of these agencies, remember we talked about the dust? I believe that all the agencies that they use to collect money from us and tax us and turn us into slaves, I believe there'll come a time where they'll all be converted into naturalization offices of some sort, where we'll then have to fill out paperwork to become proper citizens, part of the republic, whenever that gets rolled out.
Thank you, Rubberduck. All right, we've got some hands here. I'm gonna cut this at 1:30 my time, 4:30 Ducks time. Let's see here. I think Jersey, you were next, and then I see Golden Age is here. And Jeff, if you two have a question for Rubberduck, you requested a mic. Please raise your hand so I know how to call on you. But go ahead, Jersey. Then we've got Brad, Susan, and then Faith. Go ahead. Oh, and then Adam, you got your hand up too. Go ahead, Jersey. Do you still have a question?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You guys are just bringing back so many memories from 2020, 2019, like, and listening to about the camps and stuff. I mean, at that point in time, you're right, Doug, we were experiencing like, holy crap, we were learning about everything. And that was for 7 years. But we saw all the coffins that they had for us. And it was scary, because you're just getting into it and you're like, all right, somebody help me here. But I really do think that we were all corralled, and I'd love to know the answer someday. But I think we were all corralled off of X and, off of Parlor, and just corralled into just a few apps where they put people in to help us because some of it you really do need help. And if anybody has not read all the Q drops, it takes a long time because you have to sit down and answer each question. But I'm telling you, I grew up in DC. That's where my profession was, and I didn't know half the stuff. And how embarrassing, like, and I guarantee you won't either. So that's okay. And so then when you talked about the dust, sorry, I'm long winded. I know. They know me. About the dust, President Trump talked about the dust all the time back then. And he was saying, like, oh, it was just like a dust across the country or something. And, is that how they made everybody sick? Was it from the air? Like the aerosols?
I believe it was 100%, 1,000%,
Okay.
1,000,000%.
Because
That
that
was
other
one
story.
vector, Jersey. That was one of 1,000 vectors. Yeah.
There were more? Holy crap.
Well, the food, the clothing, the textiles, the big pharma,
Oh,
everything, they're all
yeah.
vectors for that, right? To hurt us.
Yeah, I just, for COVID, I was,
I use dust just to say it covers everything because that's what dust will do. And to me, it's just, is there anything that can't cover dust? Well, if it's inside of my house, well, was it always inside of your house? Did anything inside your house ever spend time as parts outside of your house? Because if it did, it's probably got dust. And I think all the corporations have like little containers of dust that they sprinkle on everything. I'm not being literal, you know what I mean? But think about it. We're dealing with a bunch of wizards, for lack of a better term, bunch of
You're covering
spellcasters, you know?
you're covering a vast space of it. Like Dr. James said, it's everything. It's our water, it's our air, it's our clothing, it's our food, it's big pharma, it's everything you can think of. So yeah, I get you. Okay,
That
let's see.
FedEx
They
package you
tainted
just opened up
Go.
everything.
inside the house, you
Yeah,
know?
go ahead, Brad. You had your hand up, and then Susan. You can go after Brad, and then Faith, and then Adam. Go ahead.
It's a
Go
question
ahead,
for
Brad.
Rubber. The question for Rubber Duck. Dr. James could probably chime in,
Hey, what's up,
and
Brad?
I know the answer to this, but a lot of people don't. I get asked all the time. Can you explain what 4chan, 8chan, 8kun, and more importantly, how the original or the OG Anons found all those things? And I think that would be helpful for people who are listening because it's a common question. Thank you.
I'm
Well,
happy to do it, but Jenny, that's like a whole space. I
yeah,
mean,
I was gonna say, because this is gonna end in about 17 minutes. Go figure. But I mean, we could do that next week if you want to talk about that next week on the show, Rubber Duck.
it's a great story. I'd love to tell it. Absolutely, yes. And you'll remember. Just make sure we start out with that because I think, and I'll have the posts ready up in the pill so that we can everyone can experience it at the same time.
Awesome. So we'll cover that for you next week, Brad. Just
Great
because,
question, Brad.
yeah, great question. All right, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Susan, go ahead, and then Faith, you can go after Susan.
Th- Thanks, Jen. Hi, Rubber Duck.
Ora.
Hola. Remember when we said watch California? It was a shooter at an Islamic center, and I guess he's in the Islamic center under, well, they got about 50,000 cop cars there, so that's an ongoing situation. And there's a major brush fire hitting the house.
And
So,
Semi Valley, yeah.
yep. My last question is this. When they said saving Israel for last, for that has not been mentioned once or whatever he said, what did he mean by that? I thought the Iran war was going to be about that, but it doesn't look like it is. Can
It
anyone
is
explain to
100%.
me?
100% it
Oh, it
is.
is.
You
Okay,
know,
so I was
yeah.
right.
Well, let me ask you this.
Thank
You
you.
you're
Thank you.
familiar with Hamas and Hezbollah, correct? Sue?
Correct.
Okay. And we say that those are what do we call them? They call them a million different things. We say that they're proxy. They're proxy for who? For Iran, right? I
Yes.
okay. You know what? I'm not going to do that anymore because I hate when other people do it when they ask questions like it's a fucking game show. Sorry about that. But no, yes. So So you have Hamas and you have Hezbollah, right? And we say that those are the proxy arms. That's what Iran uses to fight wars outside of its borders, right? Okay. So that's a fact. So another fact that you just need to add on top of that is if you think about I want to say maybe starting during the lockdowns, maybe a little bit later, just before the Gaza stuff started happening. You heard a lot of people talking about Israel because everyone was wondering what the reason why they said Israel was last, that it was only mentioned one time, was for one, I believe, specific reason because they could have done a whole other series of 5,000 drops over 10 years just explaining what Israel was, what it represented, what it really is. Because I believe, I don't know how many people we have in this room, but I would suspect that no two people that, okay, I'll go get mom. I suspect that the reason for that is just because they would have to spend all of this time explaining, and then you'd have all of the anti-Semites and the Semites. You would have all of these religious people, because don't forget where they went to target us and recruit us was 4chan. Was like the hottest public political forum that you can go to, say what you want, threaten people, and just do awful things, right, on the internet. It was for tough people. You had to have thick skin to make a difference on there, if not just get away with, staying anonymous. So I believe that's the reason why the Q team, didn't exploit anything about Israel. And by doing it that way, they kind of left Israel as a big cloud over everything. So when you talk to Anons, and you talk about Israel, they'll make the same face. It'll be like, oh, Israel, oy, and because it's that's going to be the end of this, because Israel has served two things to us as like the religious pinnacle of earth, the control structure of earth, and some people consider it the great Satan of earth. And nobody really knows what Israel is. Is it a city? Is it a state? Is it a people? And if that's the case, then what are the Jews? Are they Israeli? Are Israelis Jews? What are Jews? And how come nobody knows what a Jew is? Right? How come somebody can't sit and explain what's the difference between an Israeli and a Jewish person? Are they mutually exclusive or not? You know what I mean? So, and there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why nobody can answer that, especially when that question, rather than spend time answering that question, instead we're surrounded with noise. And it's not just noise. I just gave you 10 different things that Israel could mean. So, what they do, the other side has always done, is they've taken and exploited every single one of those reasons why they would save it for last, because that was like their launching pad. If Satan had a seat, it was in one of two places: Ukraine or Israel. That's my opinion, right? So, I mean Satan himself. I mean, like the most evil person on earth that was in the most possession of, the demonic entity that represents the ideology, right? So that's whether it was a Rothschild or whatever the fuck, who cares? It really doesn't matter. Or a person's name who we don't know yet or might never know. The fact is that it was there. So that doesn't make it a stretch to understand and believe that if Israel was really funding Hamas and Hezbollah, which we were able to prove, that to me proves that Iran was always a proxy for Israel to fight wars in the Middle East outside of its borders, right? Because Iran was a nuclear power. It was allowed to be a nuclear power by Israel, who itself is a nuclear power that was never supposed to become one. So that should tell you something about power, hidden power right there. And so because if you do the math, and you don't need to like be a conspiracy theorist, it was when Netanyahu and the IDF rose to power that the first Ayatollah was installed. And when the first Ayatollah was installed in Iran, that's when the Shah, that's when they had a democracy. And that's when everything changed. That's when Sharia law came in. That's when they started killing their own people. That's when they started adopting religions where you could marry and have sex with infants, right? And that's what provided the perfect cover for child trafficking, for the occult. Because what do they need? They just need babies. They need babies without birth certificates. They need baby machines. That's what they need. And when they couldn't get enough baby machines, they would have to go underneath Epstein's Zorro Ranch and they'd have to make them themselves. And they
Okay.
had plenty of those operations too.
All right, Rebecca, I don't mean to be rude, but I got to get to these hands. Like I've got 10 more minutes. I got to do some stuff for my day gig here, but go ahead, Faith.
Well, my questions have kind of changed. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Rubberduck.
Hello.
Good to see you. Just love being here. Um, there's so much knowledge, and you touched on, of course, some things that, well, like I said, I had a different question. But what you were talking about, like becoming a state national versus, what you kind of mentioned at the end, maybe towards the end of time, when we become a known republic, you think that there may be paperwork work we do that we're told about then, and
100%.
that
I think it'll be like,
because
I think we're all gonna, it's gonna be like everyone on earth is gonna turn 18 and everyone's gonna be able to get their driver's license for the first time. They're gonna use the internet to help set it up. They'll use local tax offices and appraiser offices and shit like that when they blow up the real estate industry, right? Because that's gonna happen too. And I think that'll all be part of it. And like you go to get your license, you'll have to take a test. You'll have to know what the fuck, and then you'll get whatever they're going to call it, whatever we are. If we're going to be citizens of the republic, then that's what they'll set us up for. Because I think it's too big, but I think that's why people like David Straight were here to put that out there into the national subconscious, because that's all people like that did, through these last 10 years, is come up, become popular, right, mainstream a little bit, put out some bombs, put out some crumbs, and then they go away, but the crumb's still there, because we still talk about them. So again, everything that was put out there, I believe, will come to fruition. I believe what we're witnessing is we're witnessing the sausage of a nation being built in front of us, just like happened 250 years ago, except they had to fight, a banker war in order to get it. And I think we're fighting a banker war now, but I think it's only being fought on TV, because I think that third world banker war was fought before Trump ever got into office. And that's my opinion.
oh, thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. I feel like you're right because there's too many unawake people too. They can't leave everybody, So I think you're right, and thank you for all the comments. I appreciate you both.
Thank you. Thank you, Faith. All right, we got Adam and then Rubber Duck, or not Rubber Duck, Dr. James, you should close us out. Yeah, Adam, if you can kind of make sure, because I just got a call from my business here, so I've got to end this. I mean, this is the longest the longest podcast I've ever done, Rubber Duck. I need to give you an award. But go ahead, Adam, and then Dr. James, you can close us out.
Yeah, I'll keep it poignant. Yeah, for Israel for last. The way I look at Israel, it's been a product of the crown. It's the proxy of the crown. And you look at Iran, that's the boogeyman that bombs and attacks vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz, which the city of London and Lloyd's of London, which has been exposed lately. If you're not getting attacked, why do you need insurance, right? So it's a gimmick for them to make money rather than the neighboring Arab states and securing that passage, as Trump, I believe, is working toward. Yeah, so that's or what Rubber Duck was saying. This is Israel, and we're cleaning up and saving it for last. One last thing. The question that I had for Rubber Duck.
Oh, that wasn't it.
No, that was just a
I'm
statement.
kidding.
That was
I'm
just a
kidding.
statement.
I'm kidding.
It's a pre-statement to the question. People, have been kind of disappearing. Certain reasons, whatever it is, they die, causes, whatever it is. We've been seeing it through the past years. Um, do you think possibly people that have passed away, also that are good people, may have gone dark or or in WITSEC or something of the sort.
Like who?
I'm
Are
not
you
saying names that I think, but
are you talking about people like Anons, or are you talking about people on the stage?
not people on the stage.
Oh,
Just
well,
people that are known. Say
do I
Kirk.
believe some of them are operators?
Like that they're still alive. Yeah. Some people that we've seen that have hurt,
You mean like
Yeah.
Michael Jackson and stuff like that?
Michael Jackson, yeah, anybody.
So
RFK. I
I
mean
do believe.
JFK Jr. things, of course.
So I do believe that there are people in witness protection for sure, and I do believe that some of these people that are on the stage right now that are playing their parts, I believe, my opinion, and Field McConnell talks about this a lot. Many of them have been captured already, and awaiting their moment, whatever that may be. But I believe Donald Trump is making deals with these people. You do your part, and then you can leave a legacy, or if you don't, you don't leave a legacy, and everybody knows about what your crimes are.
A
So
trader's justice.
yeah, if you notice a lot of people around Donald Trump, they haven't been necessarily support of Donald Trump. Like we'll use JD Vance as an example. He was a never Trumper. He never liked Trump. And Tulsi Gabbard, she's another one that's always been a liberal. She hasn't really been a supporter of Donald Trump. It's going to surprise a lot of people. Like look at Tucker Carlson. He's a prime example. I mean, these people are placed for such a time as this, and I do believe that in my opinion, many of them, such as the Barack Obamas, I mean, and the Hillary Clintons and the Bill Clintons, if they were really walking the streets, we wouldn't. I mean, it would be more chaotic, right? And if you look at these people, they don't look like the originals. So, again, those are all kind of make your opinions on. Don't get too far into the woods on that because we'll find out if we're supposed to find out. Some people, I do believe, if they are in the witness protection program, they're going to want to keep. Some of them want to keep their lives that they have now. They don't want to come out and be back, say like Elvis Presley or whoever it may be, right? So yeah, so just keep that in mind. And I do believe there are some people that, yes, have been already captured. I mean, think about it. They haven't opened up Gitmo and expanded it this much for no reason, or all these other places around the world that are like the Gitmos, right? They're not called Gitmo, but they're similar to that. So, again, that's your guys' own. You guys make your own opinions on that, but I mean, common sense would kind of tell you that a lot of them have already been captured for sure. I mean, Donald Trump says this is done. This is done. We won. Central casting. I mean, he's like I said, he's telling us, guys.
The art of war.
Go ahead. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Jersey. The art of war. Go ahead, Dr. James.
Oh yeah, hey, thank you. Rubber Duck, you mentioned earlier too about we were talking about the whole war in the Middle East and the banking war and whoever's running this war and stuff like that. And it's been alluded to several times. We had these families that have been mentioned many times, 13 families, that ultimately they report up to a supreme leader right at the very top of the pyramid, the tippy top. And the best leader like that will never use his own people to fight the wars, right? Realize that all these wars, the physical wars or the banking wars, or the psychological wars or the information war, these are all wars, part of the battlefields that guy is leading an assault into against all of us, right? So that guy will not be a member of any of those religions in terms of belief, will be a member of one of them, like the largest one around where he lives. He'll live very isolated place. Be surrounded only by almost members of like his immediate family, and has no fear because he recognizes no one as being above him. You were talking about the entity that embodies the worst and most of the evil demon, right? This is that guy you're talking about, okay? And he he doesn't he doesn't recognize anything greater than himself, right? And this is the guy that these families also revere in this manner because he won't tolerate it any other way, right? So we see all these wars going on all around the world, and it's like this dude's playing a little chess match with everybody and everything down here, right? And ultimately, I think that's what needs to be ended. It's rare to hear someone bring up the leader, right? Like you did. Most people focus on Rothschild this or Rockefeller that or whatever. And every time we do that, we're getting caught down in a layer of abstraction, which is laid out purposefully by that leader so that we won't see who's driving it, what's going on, and start analyzing the leader. If you can know who the leader is, you can see the leader, you can analyze the leader, and you can find a way to defeat the leader, right? So yeah, that's ultimately what I think's going on here in the war. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. James, and thank you.
And I was just wondering if that was the guy that RD was getting at, and if that's his impression of that dude too. Or...
Yes, it is.
Well, yeah. Sorry guys, I have to cut it. I have something. I got my business calling me. I got to deal with it. But anyway, Rubber Duck will be back here next Monday, guys. He's with us every Monday. Like I said, this was give you some credit, my friend Rubber Duck. This was the longest show I've ever done. I think we 2.5 hours. Um, and
I
everybody
didn't even
too.
realize, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, no. Hey, no, it was great information, and I'm glad we did because like I said, Rubber Duck, you have a lot of great information. A lot of people love what you have to say, as does all of you speakers that came up here and partook into the conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. Come back here at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're gonna have a Lori Madigan, I believe that I hope I said her last name correctly on. She's going to be talking about her experience of the protocols of C-19 and what happened to a loved one of hers and the dangers of remdesivir. So that will be over on my Telegram page, but it will be live. If you have questions for her, if you know somebody or this was you that experiences, come on over, ask those questions. I'm telling you guys, this is what we're here for. We're all a part of re-educating you guys, and this is what we're trying to do every week with Rubber Duck. When I'm with Rick Anson, John Baxter, whomever it is, we're trying to help re-educate, give you some good knowledge, our thoughts, our opinions, our research, and in the truth of what we believe to be truth. So check us out, everybody, and then Rick Anson will be on at
One last
4:30
thing before
Pacific.
you run. If you don't want to
Well,
go read the drops,
wait,
if you
wait, real quick. Let me finish promoting my shows today, and then I have Rick Anson at 4:30 Pacific Standard Time again over on my Telegram page after Lori. So go ahead, Rubber Duck, and then I gotta go.
nope, I put the Red Pill album up top. If you guys don't want to go look at the drops yourself, you could hear them set to music.
Yeah, he's put out a CD. Where can they find that? Is it Spotify, Apple, where?
iTunes.
iTunes.
The link is up top and it's in the pill.
Okay, cool. It's up there. And did you put it down in the bubble too? Because that stays. The nest goes away, but put it in the purple pill.
Yep, it's in the purple
So
pill.
okay, awesome. All right, cool. All right, guys, have a great day. Thank you, Rubber Duck. Thank you, Dr. James. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jersey, and everybody else that came up to partake. God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.